I could not do my job. So if you expected me to do it, I couldn't. It wasn't flowing right. And one example of me not being able to do my job were the military votes. Military votes I was unable to see at all. The first one, forget it. They wouldn't even let me do it because they said, we're starting and you're going to slow down the process, so we're not going to show it to you. So that was the end of that. And I was like at the top of my voice. I needed help. Nobody was helping me except a young gentleman, a couple young gentlemen, but specifically Evan Schock. He was an independent, and he came in there to help me because they would not allow me to see the ballots. They were 6 inches apart. I was supposed to stay 6 feet. Was that the law? Well, that's the way it works in there. So he had to help me. He had to like rubberneck himself and tell me what each ballot said. 2.5 hours for 19 ballots. And the computer screen was at the opposite end of the table. So everything was very awkward. And these ballots, some of these ballots were opened and stapled shut. So I don't see any administrative sensibility about this since I've done paperwork all my life. I don't know not to wear anything, but I saw a lot of masks that said BLM. Rhinestones. Don't forget the rhinestones. But as an administrator, I could not do my job, period. So there wasn't a lot I could do in all that confusion. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And one comment I'd like to make. My husband almost did, he said, why are you going over there? They're not going to do anything. I said, you know what? I'll go. I'm going to go because I won't be able to sleep at night knowing that I didn't do something. But I'd just like to say that.
Do any members have questions?
Really quickly, you kept saying you couldn't do your job. What specifically was your title?
I was a poll watcher.
Okay, thank you.
And I couldn't watch the ballots being counted.
Thank you.
Any
Were
other
you a challenger or a watcher?
I was a watcher. Okay. I was a watcher. I watched everything, and I was told to be a watcher. I don't know, a challenger. I guess I was a challenger, but I was trying to believe that I was a watcher. I was watching everything. I was watching.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I challenged, and I lost, and Evan had to help me. I mean, I was, I'm a pretty, I'm capable of taking care of myself, and I don't know why a young man has to help me.
Oh, sorry, guys. That's not what I wanted to do. Hang on. I know you're not going to be able to hear it. Just hold up. I accidentally pressed something. I don't even know what I pressed. Mode, maybe?
Thank you for your testimony.
Here we go.
Okay.
Appreciate you coming.
Got to touch things.
Thank you for having me.
Next, I have Randy Bishop, followed by Lenore Couric, and then David, I think it says Clitby from White Lake, so I hope I pronounced that correctly. Mr. Bishop, it's nice to see you.
Good to see you, Ed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. McBroom, and fellow senators. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today. I'd like to do so by swearing myself in. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Unfortunately, I was here on November the 19th at the joint session between the House and the Senate. And the 3 clerks that I saw give their personal opinions were not sworn in. And in my opinion, they did not give testimony. One of those clerks is my very own clerk, Cheryl Guy. I live in Antrim County. Bill Bailey's a personal friend of mine, and I'm very familiar with what's going on in Judge Elsenheimer's courtroom on Thursday. We have a problem. As I do my radio show every day, I talk and interact with people all over the state of Michigan through my website and the TuneIn app. The problem we have is that we, the people, don't have faith in what happened in our state. You've heard all the testimony here today. I totally concur as a poll challenger for the first time in my life of 62 years. I drove down to the roof of TCF Center. I call it Cobo Hall. Patrick Kobeck approached me and said, you need to come see this. I own a radio station. I'm very familiar with the internet, Ethernet cables, routers, and modems. Every single tabulator in that long tape was connected to the internet via Ethernet cables. We tracked it down. Long extensions of Ethernet cables was piled up to high-speed commercial router. We saw it with our own eyes. Many people can verify this. Patrick Kobeck went to Christopher Thomas and a Mr. Nathan and a Mr. Baxter, election officials in Detroit. We asked them, as I was witnessing the conversation, are those connected to the internet? No. You have to trust us. I'm willing to take a lie detector test. I know Mr. Kobeck will, and many others that you've heard from today. My question to you, will Chris Thomas, Mr. Nathan, and Mr. Baxter do the same? We want a full forensic audit in Wayne, Macomb, Oakland, Kent County, and Antrim County before you guys can certify this election, because it has not been truly certified based on the fraudulent activities that took place in this state. And before you vote, I wish somebody would reach out to leadership and tell them to please stop saying we haven't seen any evidence to overturn the election yet. We have. Please do not send any electors to the Electoral College on December 14th until those full forensic accountings are done in Wayne, Macomb, Oakland, Kent, and Antrim counties. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
I will take.
Try to restrain yourself, because I still have a very big pile of cards, and I know a lot of you are waiting.
My house.
Any
Here.
questions from members?
Brother.
Thank you so much
I
for
drove
being
up-
here, Senator McDonald.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Randy, at the end of the day, who are we ultimately going to find responsible? I don't want to make this political, Democrat, Republican. Who are we going to find responsible for this, in your mind, your opinion?
One thing I think that would solve the problem, and I would really love to heal not only the nation, but especially the state, I would love to see candidate, former Vice President Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Jocelyn Benson, to agree to our request. We won't accept Biden and Harris as our president and vice president until we're given proof that nothing was illegally done in this election. If you go through a forensic accounting of Wayne, Macomb, Oakland, Kent, and my Antrim County, show us the facts. We want to see the ballots. We want to see the poll books. We want to see the cables, the tabulators. We want to see it all. And if you prove to us, Mr. Biden, with all due respect, we'll accept you as our president. We will accept you as our senators and our state representatives to heal this state and to heal this country. I have not lived for 62 years with kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids to see this election stolen, which is what we believe. Prove us wrong. All you have to do is that auditing of the books, the ballots, in full disclosure with a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, Jocelyn Benson, Governor Whitmer, Mr. Biden in the room. If you do that, the truth will be shown. And the Democrats say, hey, shut up. It's been certified. No, it hasn't. I don't believe Wayne County has truly been certified. With what Monica Palmer and William Hartman went through, they never certified Oakland County. How could the Board of Canvassers certify the state when you don't have all 83 counties certified? They said it was. No, it wasn't. You send the Republican electors, you broke the law. No, I say you respond, and you did the right thing in your own morals and your values and the principles for the people of this state and for our country.
I'm telling you.
And if you don't, God help us.
These people are invoking God. We cannot lose.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You didn't even
you,
ask a
Mr.
question
Chairman.
on the end there. He was just opening it up for him to say some more stuff. I love it. Dude.
Next
I'm
I have
telling you.
Lenore Couric, followed by David Clitby, and then Linda Sawyer.
There's nothing I can do about it. And I know why it is. Because this
Know
is
her?
huge. They're pulling out all the stops on this, guys. They cannot let this stuff get out. And it's already out. It's too late.
Is Lenore here?
It's too late.
If she did submit written testimony, and we'll take that. Is David here? After David would be Linda Sawyer,
It
followed by
takes
Holly Spalding.
Such guts to say stuff like
Thank
that.
you,
before a
Senator.
panel like this.
It's
That
David
man is a
Clixby,
true man
by
of
the
God.
way.
It is an X.
Yes,
Okay.
it's an X.
That was an option I considered. Please welcome, and you have 3 minutes.
Thanks. My name is Dave Clixby. I'm from Oakland County. I was a poll challenger both in this last election as well as the August primaries. I'm just here today to tell you what I saw and request that you do something about what I view as a somewhat fraudulent election. I was there on Tuesday from 6:30 in the morning till when they stopped the count, and that's the thing that nobody's talked about today is things are going very smoothly, and suddenly at 8 o'clock ish, the gentleman on the kiosk said, "Okay, that's it. You can go home. Stop counting." And they had a stack of ballots, a couple hundred. Things were very slow in the afternoon. Things come in, you have some work, and then you don't have any work for hours. The poll workers did their job. They had to be sitting at their table more than the poll challengers and then we could have more mobility than they could. But when everything stopped, it was like a sudden shockwave through the room, and people didn't, because they were scheduled from 6:30 in the morning till 10 at night. So suddenly they get to go home. It's not fun doing what we were doing in Cobo Hall for 12 hours a day. But the point, the Baxter, the head honcho on the kiosk said the total numbers of the ballots on 1 minute. So the point is, and then pretty much everybody left. My questioning is, what happened on the midnight shift? Because I came back in at 10:30 in the morning. I was called up and they wanted more help. And at 10:30 in the morning, when I walked into that room, it was kind of a quiet, silent room that was just maybe waking up, but it was still pretty quiet and sleepy in there. So how is it that if they brought in 40,000 votes at 4 o'clock, that they would get all of them done by 10:30? It just doesn't, something about that doesn't make sense to me. And I don't trust that this election was fair and on the up and up. And what are you guys going to do about it? I know you can hear it. I know you can hear it all, but if we're not going to take action on a definite fraud to the system, this is something that we can correct the next time around. You've missed an opportunity to stop what's going on. I believe.
Thank you, sir.
I believe there was fraud in this election.
Thank you. Mr. Clixby, any questions from members? Senator Santana.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your testimony. I just got one question. Did you
Sure.
trust the election back in 2016 when Trump won and Hillary Clinton lost Detroit by 10,000 votes?
Did I what the election?
Did you trust the outcome of the election in 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost Detroit by 10,000 votes?
Not particularly, because if I remember right, Detroit was, it took them weeks to verify the election, and I just know that it didn't look, Detroit did not look good in the public eye for just being organized and then too. So no, I didn't particularly trust it then.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Gligsby. Next, we have Linda Sawyer, followed by Holly Spalding, and then Kurt House.
And I volunteered as a poll challenger. I am also a registered nurse, and I'll tell you why I'm going to throw that one in. I am from Detroit. I'm from District 6. We have some thick skins where I'm from. And I volunteered the night of the election. So I was the 10 at night to the 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. shift. Definitely a hostile environment when I walked in. I did not expect to see what I saw. And part of the hostility was definitely COVID. They used that as an excuse from the minute we walked in. And it was also an excuse to throw people out. You could have had your mask below your nose, and it was an excuse to throw you out. And the reason I put that in as a nurse is we all know that COVID people, we know that a sneeze or a cough can spread 6 feet. So we wear a mask so that we don't spread it. So if it's below your nose, it doesn't matter if you're breathing. They use that as an excuse to throw people out. And the whole irony of it is you had to stay 6 feet away from people so that we were forced not to see the ballots. But at the end of the day, when it was time to go home, they had us leave at the end of the room, and it was by escalator. So if you can imagine just a herd of cattle going up the escalator on the way out, that was okay. But as out, and at the end of the day, didn't matter. You could all smash in and leave the building okay. It was fine. So they used COVID as my monitor, told me I had to stay 6 feet away, but yet the supervisor stood between me and the monitor. So I'm going to flash forward to 2 o'clock in the morning. At midnight, Trump was ahead 10%, which was an unusually high amount. To about 2 o'clock in the morning, my monitor went down. It totally rebooted. So unless you can tell me there wasn't a data dump, there wasn't a data breach, I don't believe that the numbers were true, because when I went home and woke up, all of a sudden Biden was ahead. We had processed 120,000 votes by midnight out of the 170,000 absentee ballots we were expecting. So I assumed we were missing about 50,000 and all this, and I do believe I did witness that. And the voting had stopped in the middle, and have seen this rebooting of the laptops.
Thank you.
Democrat as they were getting booted
Thrown out.
That was my next question. So you're not aware of anybody that didn't have Republican credentials?
Wristbands on, so you could tell who we were. And we had obstructors. See election irregularities at my particular table, including non-processing of ballots. There was a certain process that the table went around. So I saw ballots not being processed, just taken out and put back in and stacked up. So they weren't even sent to the tabulator to be processed. This could have been hundreds of ballots. This could have been from a Trump precinct. And Artesia Bomber, who testified earlier, we were at that same table intermittently. She saw it was a Trump ballot. She testified that she saw it being put back in. In my affidavit, these were the tens of ballots that I saw being stacked back up and not tabulated.
Thank you.
Any
you very
other
much,
questions?
No, seems to be all. Now, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Holly Spalding. Following her would be Kurt Hausower, and after that, Timothy Parker.
So I can't get my software to pull back up. I think I'm still streaming.
Welcome
Let
to
me
the
know in the
Senate
chat.
Oversight Committee. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I have 19 things in
Unbelievable.
my affidavit, 19 items of things that I saw. I was at the TCF Center on the evening of November 3rd,
So weird.
election night, from 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. I was the observer for precinct 29. Shout out to the
And
ladies at
crashed
Precinct
again.
29. They were awesome. I gotta say, I did not experience the same kind of
No.
hostility
Okay,
that
good.
a lot of people did.
Still here.
Was able to talk to the workers before someone told them they weren't allowed to talk to me, and I wasn't allowed to talk to them. A lot of them, this was their first time ever doing this. There was one lady that was there for 30 years. She's been doing it. So I observed a spoiled ballot that came to the table that should have been stopped at the clerk's office. It was put in the problem bin correctly by the supervisor, but that should have never came. The next is they were following procedures. So the procedure was that the first person scanned the ballot, it would go to the next person would take out the ballot, read off the ballot number, and confirm that with the first person that scanned it in, and they were not doing that. I asked them why they weren't doing that, and they said they weren't doing that this year. So that's what they told me. I watched ballots that were had the wrong number, that didn't match, the inside ballot did not match the outside of the envelope number. So the second person was verifying it with herself. She wasn't verifying it with the first person. So she noticed that. She said that to the supervisor that they didn't match. So what they would do is they took white Post-it tape, they put it on the outside of the envelope, and they wrote down the number of the inside ballot number on the outside of the envelope. I witnessed that at least 3 times. And once the girl realized what the process was, she stopped mentioning it. She just knew what to do. Then there was, I did notice the Democrats that came in. They came in 2 different groups throughout the evening. There was 2 groups, and they weren't there to watch the process. They were there to watch us. They were standing behind me. I was 6 feet away from the table. They were behind me. They weren't watching what was going on. And at one point, I had 2 girls with their phones up, like they were recording me. I offered them my notes. I said, this is what I've observed. This is what they're doing. They're doing everything, they're catching these things. There were also, I observed torn, stained, any ballots that needed to be duplicated. They were not duplicated. The supervisor asked her supervisor, which is the people with the embroidered shirts. She asked them what they should do, and that supervisor told her to run them through the tabulator and only duplicate them if it was rejected. So anything that had a smudge, a stain, a tear, and I did witness a few of them. At some point, they stopped telling the supervisor that there was an issue with the ballot because they knew they were going to run it through anyway. Didn't they?
Wow.
Thank you. So, earlier in your testimony, you mentioned running the ballots through the machine and then tearing the numbers off. Were they tabulating them first and then removing the number?
No. So the first person would scan it into the e-poll book. And then he would give it to the second person. The second person was supposed to take out the ballot because the first person never saw the ballot.
Right. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. That's when you said scanned the ballot in. I assumed you were talking about putting it in the tabulator. I understand now what you're referencing. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions from members? Okay. Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
testimony. Next, I have Kurt Hausauer, followed by Timothy Parker, and followed by Bill Schmidt. Is Kurt here? Kurt? Is Timothy here? Timothy Parker.
I did have a question on Facebook asking about that alarm. If you guys are
Timothy
just
Parker?
joining us or you're still confused, each witness gets 3
I'm
minutes.
putting these back into the piles.
Each witness gets 3 minutes to
They missed
speak.
their time now.
And then
Another
that
chance.
stupid alarm goes off at the end. It's the worst alarm. It could just be like a nice little like beep,
Bill Schmidt here.
and it's like it's awful. Lizette on YouTube says this stuff is so specific. I don't think so many people would lie.
Kozinski. It's a pretty similar name to a lot of the ones we have in the UP, so. Welcome to the Senate Oversight Committee.
Thanks for having me.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I do first of all want to say that we live in a republic with a democracy. I already gave you my written testimony as
yes.
well as my affidavit.
Yes.
What I'm going to tell you just a couple things that are in my sworn statement is I was a challenger down at TCF, and I did experience a lot of things of what people are saying. There was intimidation. There was the cock blocking of us being able to see the actual process where they wanted us to stand at the corner monitor. And the one most egregious thing that I noticed was it alerted me that the table person who was in charge of our table had told seat number 5 to hang on to 9 ballots because they needed to bring them back to change some numbers on them. So I'm like, oh wait, red flag in my head. So I thought, well, I need to go over by the scanner and see what they're doing over there. And I did, and after a little bit, and I was harassed about my mask because I could only wear it up to my nose because I need to be able to breathe. And I had ADA. And anyway, so what I had witnessed was this gentleman scanning the envelope. He raised it up, calling for the table person in charge of our table to come. And he says, what am I supposed to do with this when the ballot number does not match in the book? And he said, well, we're just going to change it. And I said, you cannot change that. You cannot go in the poll book and change it. We need to challenge this. Well, when I did that, summing everything up, I was pulled aside about my mask. The woman and I had agreed that if you get me a shield, I will wear a shield with my mask. I'm good, you know. And I thought that was settled. And while she was talking to me, I could hear the gentleman tell the scanner guy, just scan them and run them through. It's not our job to double check the numbers like this.
Yes, it is.
So that was the most egregious thing that I had experienced. You'll see the rest of my thing. But days later, my neighbor was walking her dogs. And so I went over in my jammies and I talking to her. And she says, Robin, I want to tell you something. You're political, and I think I need to tell you something. So what she had told me was she works at the local nursing home. And she had gone back to work after being off all summer. And one of the RNs had told her that the activities director held a activity in the building with the seniors, and it was a mock election. It was a mock election with real ballots, and that they were the staff workers were helping the seniors fill these ballots out, to the point that one gentleman was writing his name as Quincy, but that wasn't his name because he had Alzheimer's. So the worker actually crossed his name out and wrote on his thing, and was told that the ballots were in fact mailed out. So that's a point that I think nobody knows about or has heard about. I've asked them to come and testify, but they said that they're worried about their jobs.
And we'll need, if that issue is going to be looked into, we'll need something. Your testimony would constitute hearsay.
I actually have
So-
my stuff in writing, and I've given you all and I've given the facility's name, address, and all that information to
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Mhm.
Any other members have questions?
I do want to remind you, though, that your job is
Here
to
it comes.
thoroughly, whether you're Democrat or Republican, we have an ethical, moral, civic duty to make sure that this election is truly an legal process. And to me, it seems like a lot of infringements and a lot of infractions, a lot of illegal behavior towards people trying to do their legal jobs were in fact violated.
Thank you.
They're being very courteous with these people, and these people
Thank you very much
are
for your
being very
testimony. I need
strong.
to apologize for Senator Tice, who had to step out for another committee, and we'll come back
Yeah.
as soon as she can. And
So one thing I do want to
Senator
tell you about.
Santana does too, so thank you. We'll keep rolling.
I don't
What
know
I
why
wanna
this
tell you
is
about
a
one
fuzzy
of the
audio.
envelopes that came through was the tab was tacked behind the envelope like this, and the ballot was showing like this, and I said, you can't process that, that is not a legal sealed envelope, and I got fought about that.
Were you successful or unsuccessful in challenging that?
Every time I challenged them, which was about 6 times, at seat number one's thing, they just wanted to put a Post-it on it and we'll look back at it later.
Guys, I
It's
wanna
not
see if
our
there's
job
another
to
feed
worry
that's
about that.
not
And I'm like,
fuzzy,
well, wait a
so
minute here.
bear with me.
And then the
That way
gentleman
we'll be
that
able
was
to tell if
opening
it's
the
my
envelopes,
speaker
he hit ballot.
the-
Now remember, we do not know if these are Democratic or Republican
The
votes.
feed.
We just know that we're looking at an envelope that is legal or legally sealed or not sealed. And whenever I tried to challenge it, he put a Post-it on, orange one.
Okay, thank you.
So, just to tell you. Thank you for
This is
having
a
me.
good time to try. We'll see what happens here.
We knew that there
Oops, sorry.
were going to be problems. And Ruth Johnson begged you guys to give the county clerks, city clerks, more time. You didn't. That's a huge chunk of this. Because anytime when there is confusion, there's always doubt. And that's what we're facing now. Likewise, there was a lot of ignorance in the room. Ignorance as to what constitutes a legitimate ballot. What is a signature supposed to be all about? How the entire process goes by. If you're predisposed to see fraud, you will see fraud in just simple mistakes. Mary Smith and Fred Jackson live at the same address. They fill out their ballots, they put them in separate envelopes, the incorrect envelopes. So you have the mismatched ballot with the number, and all this is readily explainable. Unless you want to see fraud, then these are illegal ballots. So part of this problem is just human error. Part of the problem is the folks just didn't have enough time. Part of the problem is a scourge pandemic. From
1 minute.
From my point of view, I saw a lot of poll workers work really hard. And I think there were some hard feelings on part of many of the challengers. There was a lot of sharp elbows, and people's got their feelings hurt. And I think that's what we're seeing here today.
So they had to
Hurt
infiltrate with somebody, right? They had to get somebody on their
That's it.
side to get up there and testify.
Thank you, sir. Do you were in the room, I believe, a little while ago when we had a gentleman testify about how he was a poll worker and had received training, and in that training there was some instructions on making it difficult for poll challengers. Were you in the room for that part of the testimony?
I was over in the,
in another room?
Yeah.
Could you hear it, or?
yeah, I did.
Okay, so in his testimony, he said, there was these instructions during the training, there was a lawsuit, there was instructions to the Secretary of State to not do those things, and yet that message didn't seem to be delivered. Would you agree with that as being part of the
I would
confusion?
say that again gets back to the fact that this was a rush process.
Mhm.
Right. Which again gets back to the, how much time did you guys allow the clerks to do their job?
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, there's always there's a reason for a problem.
So were you a poll challenger, a watcher, a worker? I don't remember, I'm sorry.
I'm a lifelong Republican
Okay,
until this election.
okay. But did you have I just wondered if you had a title. You said you were at TCS.
I was an election challenger, yeah.
A challenger, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, what I saw was, it was disturbing. And I could see how people could be, you go in a very large room, it's really hot. I had a little thermometer with me
So
to
he
check my
obviously, he
temperature
said,
for
is
the
a
course of the
lifelong
day.
Republican.
It was 85 degrees in there. It was
Until
really
Trump.
warm.
So he's an
There were
anti-Trumper.
Too many people. People are shouting. People are yelling. There's the sharp elbows thing. You got folks that are upset with just having to be there. And because they're untrained, and there's that ignorance factor, right? Ignorance isn't the same as stupidity. It's just not knowing something. There's many things that you're ignorant about, probably heart surgery, right? How to fix a carburetor, brake lining, right? There's 1,000 and million things that we're just simply ignorant about. And there was a large Facebook and other social media, come on down, we need you. So you got a lot of people who are just completely untrained, had never done it before, and they're told, look out for fraud. At every single rally the president had, he said this election was going to be filled with fraud. Tweets galore, same thing. This election is a fraud.
Sir, were you working during the shift when the ballots came in late in the morning?
I arrived at 5:55 on the 4th, the day after
In the morning?
election.
5:55 in the morning.
And then I left at 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Was that Wednesday?
So according to past testimony, that was the time of the most tension, is when you were there then?
I was there all day. I was there for 16 hours. I was working another poll site on election day.
Okay.
So my day was, election day was busy. And then, so.
Senator McDonald, did you have a question? No? Senator Irwin? No? Thank you very much for your testimony, sir.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this.
So he just
Next,
doesn't.
I
He
have
just doesn't like Trump.
Matthew Shepard, followed by Maria Menzel-Brown, and then Polly McNichol. Mr. Shepard,
Good afternoon.
welcome to the Senate
Close
Oversight
to this
Committee.
Good afternoon, evening.
Not yet.
A constituent of yours from Schoolcraft County ran for county sheriff up there, and he witnessed some issues of concern regarding a county clerk not allowing individuals to question polling and what have you. That testimony has been submitted to your clerk. I also submitted my testimony of my area, and I'll read it out just real quick. Election integrity is the utmost importance to preserving our freedom through what was written by our nation's framers in the Foundation of Liberty through one of the greatest documents ever written, the U.S. Constitution. On Monday, November 23rd, 2020, I attended a Stop the Steal U.S. rally in Lansing, Michigan. Liberals expect us to respect the vote, as one of their signs said, as certified by corrupt government officials. 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans on the board of canvassers. 3-0 certified with 1 abstention, declaring Biden successful in this election. They should respect the truth. The truth is Biden and his co-conspirators, i.e. Michigan's executive branch, corrupt politicians, Governor Whitmer, Attorney General Nessel, and Secretary of State Benson, definitely stole this election in 2020.
These people
and
have
most
such
likely
guts.
in 2018 with Dominion ballot machines. I would also speculate the Democrats did the same in 2008 and 2012 for Obama's reign of destruction in America.
Oh my gosh.
Biden's supporters also had signs made up, quote, follow the law. And I responded to them, follow the Constitution, not unconstitutional mandates made by executive orders from a tyrannical governors throughout this nation.
Guts.
Another sign said, BOC, do your job, which I responded, yes, the Board of Canvassers should do their job and verify the votes, not just certify the votes blindly.
One minute.
With all these signs, I imitated Speaker of the House Pelosi tearing up the Trump sign, her State of the Union address, by tearing up their ignorant signs. I found it rather peculiar whenever I visit another neighboring communities, absentee ballots for those who voting in person, for those who feared voting in person with all the fear-mongering in this nation, along with all of our active duty military personnel absentee ballots being handled behind closed doors by election polling workers. When I inquired as to why, I was told that was the way they decided to do things. Sadly, the GOP is allowed to pass 2 elections to be stolen, and top Michigan legislature leaders, Speaker of the House Lee Chatfield, Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, continue to pander to the tyrannical governance. Respectfully, Matthew Shepard, co-chair of Constitution Party Midwest Region and second vice chair for State Taxpayers Party of Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, were you, and forgive me if you mentioned this at the beginning, were you at TCF on election day?
Not
or
TCF,
the day after?
just
Okay.
my local areas.
You were a poll watcher or worker at another?
I wasn't a poll watcher. I was just constitutional advising.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Parker, who I called earlier, has come. So if, Mr. Parker, please come ahead. I know it's logistically complicated with in multiple rooms and social distancing, so I'll try to make some allowances.
Yeah, and they said they were gonna come and get us when
Yeah,
so we got over here.
well, and we had a bunch of people who didn't show up, and then I had to read names faster, and so there was a little confusion there. So thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I did, my son did get the call, in the morning. He called me about a minute after I got out of bed. He said, Dad, they need, poll watchers, challengers down at Coble Hall. He said, can you give me any information? So I made some frantic calls, and, he went down. I had wanted to go down previous. My wife, you see some of the physical conditions I have, said, no way you're going down there. But I came upstairs, said, hon, I gotta go. And so I went, and we got trained down there underneath the Election Integrity Fund. And the way I understood, there were at least 135 table groups, and I'm not sure how many Election Integrity Fund people were in there, but I knew my son was in there and had to leave to go pick up his sons. And I did not believe that they were granting other Republicans to replace them. We did know that they were kicking some out, and so I knew they were short, and yet they came out and said, no, they had plenty, and they would not let us in. I was there when they were boarding up the windows. And I don't know that Charlie the Duff, he showed up and interviewed somebody, and then they started letting in about 6 at a time. I never did make it in before. I was too tired. I can't stand very long, so I very often had to sit down. But it should be amazing to us that only Republican and nonpartisan workers were denied access to legally observe what is supposed to be a fair and transparent election. And it should not even be questioned when a Republican watcher or challenger is not at each table group. In the name of honesty and integrity, every Democrat involved should demand that the process stop when Republican without Republican eyes. This lack and the cheering and the denial should be regarded as reprehensible and manifestation of fraud with no other proof required.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard several times today, do you have proof? It's like, man, when you're denied access, that should be sufficient proof.
Thank you, sir.
And as legislatures, I would just encourage you guys, the least you can do is pass legislation to require maybe a revote. I heard the one gentleman not too long ago talk about the different counties. To me, what would be a few more weeks if we actually made people feel like we had a transparent and fair election? Because right now, I would agree, most people that I know do not believe at all that we're anywhere close to that. And I would just, for the sake of the Republic, I'm 67 years old, and I cannot stand the idea that our country could go down under an unfair election.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any members have questions? Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
As the time goes
Next,
on,
I have Maria,
this guy has
Mental
gotten
Brown?
far more respectful.
followed by Polly McNichol, followed by Marion Sheridan. Is Maria here?
And yes, the alarm is awful. If I could turn it off myself, I would. I'm sorry, guys.
Maria, not in the room. Is she coming? Okay, we'll set that aside for now. Is Polly McNichol here? Welcome. After Polly, it would be Marion Sheridan, followed by Patty Kamegata. Oh, she wrote here that she was not at TCF, so put that one aside. Then it would be Joe Farkas. So Polly McNichol, welcome.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
I was at TCF Center as a poll challenger, kind of the belly of the beast. Real quick, it's a longer story than this, but what I watched, one of the incidents, Mrs. C, it was written on her shirt, brought down a box of ballots. Since they're in stacks of 50, I could estimate it was about 500 ballots. Gave this box of ballots to 3 ladies sitting at a table just off the platform. Excuse me, I'm nervous. One of the ladies, the far left one, tried to get our attention. She ended up giving us notes that were stuck on all these ballots, the sticky notes. She ended up giving us 4 of these notes. They read, received November 4th, enter as November 2nd. These 3 ladies were entering these ballots in to the verified voter system. She also got my attention, turned around, tried to get me to see her laptop monitor, which I leaned in and saw, and she wanted me to see the signature. The signature on the screen was some huge circles like that, the signature. Signature on the ballot was little tiny vertical sticks. It wasn't even in the same solar system, definitely different signatures. And this one lady that was trying to help us ended up being Jessie Jacobs, the whistleblower. Onto the tabulators, I witnessed multiple times stacks of 50 ballots being put through the tabulators multiple times. If they'd have been cleared, we would have no way of knowing, because the supervisors for the tabulators made sure that the metal boxes they put the finished ballots in were so far behind the tabulators and made us stand behind those boxes. We were at least 12 feet from them and wouldn't allow us to get any closer to them. About signing in and signing out, they had us sign in, not out, and said that we had plenty of us in there. Wednesday night, there were 10 of us in the room. I mean, us as Republican poll challengers, sorry. Yet, when I left, there were still people in the lobby that were being barred from coming in. Still only 10 Republican poll challengers in the room. I witnessed the military ballots being duplicated. I just thought it was strange that only Biden's name was selected, no down ballot. And I watched multiples, I don't know how many I watched, and not one of them was for Trump. I thought that was really strange, especially being military. You must know in your heart that this election was fraudulent. There's no question of it if you really are sensible. And we all pray that you do the right thing. Pay attention to Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, and name the electors for Donald Trump. And I really appreciate you listening to me. Oh, good timing.
Perfect timing, yes. Thank you for your testimony. I know that we're planning to hear from Jessie at a later date, so thank you for that. Do any other members have a question? All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
She did well. She did very well. I like how she
Did
ended
Maria
that.
come into the room by any chance? No, okay. Well,
Are you guys still with
call on
us?
her later then, again. This one here says that she's unable to be here, but she's attached the affidavit, so.
If
That brings us to Joe Farkas.
if we were just looking, like I keep saying,
Joe
at a
Farkas,
couple of
followed
people with
by
these kind of
Terry
what would
Begas,
seem like
Followed
anomalous
by Vicky Collar.
type things, it would be one thing. But each and every single one of these witnesses
Why don't you come on
is
up?
saying that this happened multiple
Joe
times.
Farkas or Terry Begas can hear me. Come on this direction towards the room. After that'll be Nancy Tissio.
Hello, good afternoon.
Welcome to the Senate Committee, Vicky.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I started off like, my table that I had was, they didn't get very many ballots, probably 200 for the most nights, so we weren't that busy. But so one thing that I had seen was the truck that came in between 3:30 and 4, and there was golf carts, and I was sitting on one of the golf carts back there because my table wasn't doing anything, and I was just sitting there, and I seen the door open. I heard a lot of commotion about what were all these ballots, and then so I walked over and I went by the door, and I seen the white truck from the city. Looks like, you know, the city white pickup trucks, and they had the symbol on it, and there was one guy driving it, and he had a mask on, but looking at his eyes, you know, he had, I would say, Asian descent. And I know he brought in at least 3 dollyfuls of the boxes, the white boxes with the paper cardboard on them, and took them over by the platform that the people were standing on. Somebody did mention, like, where did they come from? He goes, I don't know, I'm just the driver, was his statement. And that's basically, you know, I don't know where the ballots came from, but I know it was after 3 o'clock in the morning that they came. And there was quite a few of them, and there was quite a few people that seen it come in, and they looked just like the ballot boxes that were brought to the tables, and they could see the yellow envelopes of the voter bag, you know, that were in there.
I don't want to rush you. Can I ask a question? Or
Yeah, you can ask
okay.
a question. I just
So,
nervous.
were you watching them open the boxes after they were unloaded?
No, I did not open. No, because where they took the boxes at was over, because I was back by the back door, because that's where my table was at, and I didn't want to leave that table because they kept, like, every once in a while we get a stray ballot. So I had watched him take them over by the table, and I know I counted at least 3 trips, but I don't know if he made any more, because then I went back to watching my table.
All right. Does any other member have any questions? Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time to come in.
All right, thank you.
This
Joe
guy
Farkas.
has gotten so much nicer throughout the
here?
day, Leah. This guy, you know, the chairman guy.
Terry Begas.
There's a breaking news coming out
Terry
from
here.
Pennsylvania. There's another
Hearing?
press conference going
Just
on
in
right
case
now.
I'm mispronouncing that last name, she's from Plymouth. So Terry from Plymouth.
Terry from Plymouth,
Nancy
that's gonna be
Tissio?
good.
Is that you?
USPS,
All right, great.
truck drivers, and
After
testify
Nancy,
for
I have John McGrath
they transport it.
and Donna Ross.
288,000 ballots across state lines.
Welcome to the Senate Committee. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm from McLean
Wow.
County,
Well,
and
we're
I
gonna
was,
stick with this, but
a
Leah will
ballot
tell you about
challenger
that.
On Monday the 2nd.
No, there's both
at
two things
TCF,
happening at
and
one
on
time right now.
Tuesday, the election day, I wanted to look at the
We
polls.
can't hear her because she's wearing that
I heard,
silly
you know,
face
things
shield.
about the polls. So, on Tuesday.
Can I interrupt you for just a second? Can you talk a little louder
Oh,
for the
sure.
microphone? That'd be
get
great.
closer.
Thank you.
So Monday I worked at TCF, and I watched them. You know, on Monday they were taking the ballots out of the outer envelope, and it went pretty smooth. I have to admit, there were a couple of things that concerned me, and I, you know, addressed them. One was 80% of the ballots that were at my table 93 were closed with packaging tape. And I thought that was odd. You know, I mean, 83%, like 80% of the ballots were closed with packaging tape. That seemed different to me. Another thing that I thought was like horrible is whoever like marked the outside, the ballot number on the outside of the outer envelope, they wrote it in a light green crayon. And so, you couldn't, you know, 6 feet away, you couldn't see if that ballot number matched the ballot number that was marked on the outside of the envelope.
What?
And then, you know, what I thought was odd was the people that were just taking the ballot out of, they were taking the ballot out of the inner sleeve, these two ladies, and they were turning it around so that the number would be on top. You know, they'd take it out, they'd open it up, they'd look at it, fold it back up, put it in to make sure the number was on the top. But they had ink pens, and I thought, why did they have ink pens by where they're at? So I kind of brought a lawyer over, and we thought, why do you need an ink pen by where they were at? All their job was to turn the ballot over. So that day wasn't, you know, that bad. Then the next day I went to Henry Ford High School. Is that all right?
You have 1 minute left.
Oh, Henry Ford High School. And when I was the only Republican in the gymnasium, there were 6 precincts. And after like about 2 hours, I realized they were giving out ballots to people that had an absentee ballot red question mark next to their name. And so I kind of like stopped the process, and we went around and everyone was giving out ballots to people that had that question mark. And we ended up calling the war room in Lansing, because I said, no, they have to call the clerk and have the ballot spoiled before they can issue them another ballot. And they didn't agree with me, so we got that straightened out, and that was true. They had to call the clerk. Well, the clerk wasn't answering. They weren't getting any answers. So I know they were just continuing to give people ballots that had, the question mark, because no one would answer at the clerk's office. And when I went to precinct 275, the girl, I said, what are you doing when they have the question mark? She goes, oh, I just write their names down. And she had a list of like 25 people. I go, no, that's not the process. And she goes, what do you mean? And it turned out she wasn't even a poll worker. She was supposed to be a Democratic poll challenger. But when she got to the building, she didn't know what she was doing. She didn't, she wasn't trained well, because she didn't even know what her job was.
Thank you.
All right. Oh. But I mean, to me, people got 2 ballots.
Thank you. Senator Lucido.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Nancy. You mentioned lawyers. How many lawyers were there?
There was probably 5 Democratic lawyers.
5 Democratic lawyers. How many Republican lawyers?
There wasn't one until like 5 o'clock. I was there 6:30 in the morning.
You're hitting yeah, you're messing with things.
Let's play. I don't know where your thing is.
Morning is now to discuss where the election
You don't have a mouse.
stand.
You didn't bring it down.
Spakowski.
What do
He
you
is a
mean?
senior
You can use
legal
mine.
fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Thank
I
you for
couldn't
joining
find
us, sir.
Leah
I
has
wanted
her
to ask you this.
laptop. I have mine.
You know,
She
I'm
usually
not
brings
a
hers
lawyer
down. I
like
couldn't
you
find
are,
her
but
mouse
as I
anywhere.
understand it, if you want to be in front of the Supreme Court, you have to
I'm
have standing.
saying,
You have to
I
have
don't know where your mouse is.
a constitutional
Let's
issue.
fight about it. And somebody asked, are we related?
One lawyer said, well,
This
he
should
was gonna
answer
take
your
that list
question.
of 25 and he was going to spoil the ballots. I don't know.
I need my
All
mouse
right,
back.
that gets me some idea. But there was no
Go get
lawyers
your
where
mouse.
you
I don't know where
were,
it
except
is. I'm gonna
Democratic
keep it.
lawyers.
Is this
How'd you
mine
know
or
they were
yours?
Democratic lawyers?
It's yours.
I was the only Republican in the whole room.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you very much for your testimony. Did you submit things in writing?
I did, and a video.
Okay.
I don't know what else she said.
Thank you.
I was trying.
John McGrath.
Lucido is loud,
John
booming
here?
voice, and she was behind
And
the
after
shield.
John, Donna Ross, followed by Eugene Greenstein.
It's down here. I got it all ready for
Welcome
you.
to the Senate Oversight Committee, Mr. McGrath. You have 3 minutes.
What?
Thank you.
It's right here.
Okay, thank you, Chairman McBroom and committee members. My name's John McGrath. I'm a registered voter here in Michigan. On Wednesday, November 4th, I learned that tens of thousands of ballots had arrived at TCF Center from Wayne County, which was after the election deadline of 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 3rd. Surprised and concerned that so many ballots appeared after the election deadline, I felt compelled to drive to TCF Center to volunteer as a nonpartisan election challenger. I witnessed ballot after ballot being counted for unlisted voters. Unlisted voters are ballots not registered in either the electronic nor the supplemental paper-based absentee voter poll book. The unlisted voters had no dates of birth, in contrast to the registered voters. The poll workers continually, and they were being instructed to do so, I don't blame them for this, but they continually entered the default birth date of January 1st, 1900, into the computer system to process these votes. Since working at the TCF Center, I have read where some leaders of the Michigan legislature indicate that they have not been made aware of any information that would change the outcome of the election. I wish that were the case. Tens of thousands of ballots arriving after the election deadline provide a minimum of tens of thousands of reasons to investigate and audit these ballots. I've also read where some leaders of the Michigan legislature indicate that Michigan's certification process should be free from threats and intimidation. The problem is that Michigan's certification has not been free from threats and intimidation. I refer this committee, I refer the people's representatives in Michigan to the affidavit submitted by Ms. Monica Palmer, chairperson of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, and by Mr. William Hartman,
1 minute,
member of the Board of Canvassers of Wayne County. And finally, if you read their affidavits, that is for Ms. Palmer and Mr. Hartman, it is clear that they did not certify Wayne County's results. And since they did not certify Wayne County's results, how can the Board of State Canvassers certify any results? It's a mess. It's a mess for the Michigan legislature. But it's time for the Michigan legislature to step up and step in, and because at this point, I don't see how you can send any electors to the Electoral College. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Do any members have questions?
Can you stop the button before it goes off?
Thank you for your time today, sir.
They're gonna have
Thank you,
nightmares
Chairman.
about that button
You
going
would
off.
turn in written testimony?
I will.
Thank you.
You want me to bring it to you right now?
Breaking
If
news
you
right
have
now.
it available,
Wait a
that is
minute.
very convenient.
Turn it down. Well, we can skip over a witness if we
Next,
have to.
I've been
Speak into the microphone.
Breaking news happening right now. There is a press conference by the Amistad Project. They are lawyers. They've been fighting. They have got a lot of fights in Michigan, and they have two USPS contractor workers who are testifying to mail fraud. And one is testifying that he brought over completed ballots from New York to Pennsylvania across state lines, and the numbers of about either between 150,000 to 288,000 ballots.
Give them the other breaking news they need to know.
Bill Barr said there's not enough. He just recently made a statement, said there's not enough election fraud to overturn the outcome of the elections. He is currently at the White House.
And I told Leah when I said to her just now, because she wrote it down so I could read it, and I said he didn't investigate anything. How can he? We know that the DOJ did not investigate any voter fraud. Okay, the FBI didn't either.
These people have been trying to contact the FBI. They are not following up with them.
So
They're
you can't
just trying to run out the clock to
here's
Biden.
The deal. Bill Barr can say that in all honesty, that we didn't find any because you weren't looking and you wouldn't listen to people.
So when somebody says somebody burned down my house and you do not go investigate, you say, well, I didn't see the house burned down.
And so we all now know that somebody got to Bill Barr at some point. And it was just before everything was going to come out with Hunter Biden. Bill Barr was straight on track, coming down the lines, coming hard. This is what's going to come out. And then he put on a screeching halt.
Remember when he said mail-in ballots were rife for election fraud? And he was just really concerned
We're looking
about
at
it?
a body snatcher conspiracy here. All right, let's listen to the lady.
Not block the votes, but block the view of what was going on to keep us 6 feet away. Taught to intimidate us. It was disgusting. I'm not sure if it was on YouTube or what it was, but it was sickening. That's not what we were taught. We weren't taught anything like that. We had rules to follow. We had regulations to follow. We had to wear lanyard around our neck to identify that we were a poll challenger. I was with an independent company, so it said poll challenger. So they knew who we were. But anyhow, I got cold feet and decided, because of what I saw on the training video, I anticipated problems at Kovo, and I was apprehensive. So I chose Dearborn for 2 days. I did Monday and Tuesday at Dearborn. They asked me Tuesday night if I wanted, got a call, they needed help at Cobo Wednesday. I was beat. I had worked long hours both days, and I said no. However, Wednesday morning, I got a call to action.
1 minute.
Pardon me? Yeah. Got a call to action Wednesday morning that they needed help. They were understaffed there, and about the treatment that was going on is what I have heard said today is what I heard what was going on. And I said, BS, I'm going. So a friend of mine and I got in the car and we came down. When we came down to Cobo, we drove down, we went in, we walked in with a lawyer and some other people. There was no security guard. We parked on the roof of Cobo, and there was no security guard when we walked in. The other gal that went with me was being trained in the hallway. I was already certified, so I wanted to go back to the car to get my phone off the seat. So I went back up to the roof where I came in the door, and there was a security guard now there. Uh-oh. Do you want me to leave you hanging?
Well, you've written it down.
Can I finish it? Can I finish my sentence?
If you can finish in 15
Okay, so there
seconds
was
or
a
so.
security guard there, and I had to have other people get my phone for me because I couldn't leave the building. What I didn't get was, there were 3 people that they said if us 3 people leave, there was a crowd of people that they couldn't get in that were volunteers. And they said, if we're leaving, there's 3 of us leaving, can 3 come in? He said, nope, and it was all supposedly due to COVID and overcrowding. Come on, we know how big TCF is. No, I don't buy that.
Thank you.
But anyhow, I was there when they boarded up the windows so we couldn't see in, and I missed going into the counting room just by a hair. They had called in some independent poll challengers, and I turned around, anyhow, they swooped them in there, and then there was nothing for hours. We went upstairs and there was nothing, no more people going in, but there was media going in, there were attorneys going in, but no poll challengers, no,
Thank you for the detailed account in your thing that you passed out to us.
No, that's it, because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't in the
I said
counting.
thank you for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I thought you were asking for more.
No.
Okay, I should know.
Do any members have a question for Terry? No? Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for coming.
Oh my gosh. This is why I'm so glad I'm not doing this kind of stuff.
Next, I have Donna Ross. After Donna, Eugene Greenstein, followed by Sylvia Halpert. Welcome to the Senate Committee, ma'am. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Ronna Ross. I have spent my life saying, oh, no, it's Ronna like Donna, but, not Rhoda, not Rhonda, not
If it's any
Rhoda.
consolation to all of you today, my handwriting's not that great either. So, but I have a 2-letter name, so I get away with it. But please go ahead, Ronna.
Thank you, Senator.
You have 3 minutes starting now.
Okay. I want to demonstrate to you just how official the harassment was at TCF on November 4th. I got there at 1 p.m. having been told, we need Republican poll challengers. And I went running down, and I had been certified as such, but we couldn't get in. And so an hour or 2 later, I thought, well, maybe I'll try, I'll be an independent poll watcher. So I switched lanyards, and now I'm independent. And eventually I was able to get in, but not until 4 p.m. And I had gotten there at 1. When all these pizza boxes went up so we couldn't go in, there was just a mob of people waiting to be poll watchers. And a man came out and had a very big presence and very big man, and he said, please, I need room, everybody back. I'm the lawyer for the city of Detroit. So it's like, okay, and I have something to say. So he then introduced a man who told us that he was in charge of the poll watchers, monitoring them. And people say, well, and he said, and there are every single Republican challenger is here. I was like, no, they're not. They're not at all. And he said, well, there are 130 whatever signed in, and none signed out. And people next to me protested. I went out for lunch. Nobody said sign out. And he said, well, people chose not to sign out. I'm telling you that there was no signage. There was no signage for sign out. Big sign for sign in. Turns out you were supposed to sign out at the same place, but there was no signage. And the exit was 50 feet away. So when you wanted to leave, your direction was away from the sign out. So just wanted you to know that.
Thank you.
That took a while to say all that.
Thank you for that. It's helpful information on how the room was laid out. Any questions? No? Thank you. Next, Eugene Greenstein. After Mr. Greenstein, I have Sylvia Halpert and Dr. Linda Lee Tarver.
Thank you very much, Senators. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but since no one really said what I wanted to say, and I did file an affidavit with the Republican lawyers, so I have no idea whether that comes to you guys or not.
Well, you have your 3 minutes, so
okay, thank you. My name is Eugene Greenstein. I'm from Farmington Hills. I was a poll chairman in Detroit on Tuesday, November the 3rd, and a GOP challenger on Wednesday at TCF, answering an emergency request for challengers. And my basic comment is there needs to be a forensic audit. Why do I think so? I observed that envelopes, which were scanned in some cases, would have a different ballot number than was on the envelope. I was at board 55 in TCF. The ballot number, though, was in the poll book, as was the number on the envelope. The situation would result in a challenge ballot. The situation should result in a provisional ballot, because there's no one knows who voted for anything, because they didn't match, excuse me. And other situations which I just couldn't follow would be processed through also where there was this mismatch. And so my question is, how is it that there's this lack of integrity between the envelope and the ballot, which results in a counted ballot, when on Tuesday, I knew who voted at the polls? This absentee ballot process is a total disaster in terms of accountability, opportunity for fraud, etc. And good people can want to do good things, and bad people can want to do bad things. And I think we've seen a lot of problems here because the voter and the ballot don't go together. And that's my comment. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Greenstein. Any questions from members? No. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Did you submit your testimony in writing, or?
No,
Oh, okay.
can. If you give me an email address, I can send it.
Yeah, we can do that, so thank you. The email that we've been using for this committee is Senate Oversight Chair at senate.michigan.gov. I know that's a little bit of a mouthful, so, but if I have a spare card somewhere, I'd write it down. The next up, we have Sylvia Halpert, followed by Dr. Linda Lee Tarver, followed by Marilyn Fine. Ms. Halpert?
Continue to listen to these, but
Welcome to the
remember,
committee. Thank you.
they're going to listen to the whistleblower at a later date. the Michigan House is going to
I am
have
a registered voter in Oakland County, and I volunteered at the TCF Center in Detroit. Our family immigrated from Canada. I love this country. And what I saw down in the TCF Center made me very sad and disappointed. There seemed to be a concerted effort to let us know that we were not welcome, very unfriendly and at times hostile. At one point, I witnessed a challenger walk up to a lady to look at the ballot. She turned aggressively, brandishing a long metal letter opener to the gentleman, and in a threatening manner pointed the sharp object towards his chest and demanded that he move back, move back. He backed up and she took a step forward towards him, still pointing the sharp object at his chest and repeating back up. She said it at least 4 times. Another time I was standing more than 6 feet away from a counting board table when a man forcefully demanded, "Get back, COVID, COVID, get back." It was impossible for us to see what he and anyone else was doing at the table. And clearly that was his goal. Several of us challengers watched quietly for over a long, long time for the military ballots. At one point, several police officers came in and stood between us and the ballots, a little over to the side, but a man came up and said we were to disperse. I said we were being respectful and standing more than 6 feet away. He said it has nothing to do with COVID. You are interfering with the process. We were standing quietly doing nothing, but
of the process.
we spread out in the aisles like good little sheep.
What they're acting
We couldn't
like is
see,
that
of course, from there. I watched workers take hours sorting military ballots into containers labeled with corresponding precinct numbers. In all our time there, I never saw those ballots being taken and processed. It was a long, long lag time, and during that time, the people at the counting board sat idly doing nothing. And I was wondering, why are they taking so long to get these to the tables so they can be processed? And it occurred to me maybe they were wanting us to leave. So after a long wait, about 4:30 or so, it was starting to get dark. We left the building. That night at about 10:30, I received a call from a gentleman whose number I had gotten while I was there. He said, "Are you still in the building?" And I said, "No, I'm getting ready to go to bed." He said, "Well, we've been following a truck and it just entered the TCF building. Can you watch for it?" And I said, "Well, I'll call somebody." And I did, and got one of the ladies who testified today and to look for it. When we came out, cardboard was being put up on the windows so that, to block the view from the group outside who wanted to come in, were refused admittance. When we exited the building, another large crowd was out front of the building complaining they were not allowed in and had been there for hours, some of them up on the roof, and there had been a man up there keeping them out. And we talked to some
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't give you a 1-minute warning, so please go ahead and wrap up your comments.
We just talked to a couple of newspapers and TV news and went on home. But that's only a small portion of what happened.
Thank you. Do you have other written for us? Thank you.
Not today, but I will send it to you. Can you tell
Okay.
me that same address again that you told?
It's Senate Oversight Chair at senate.michigan.gov.
You can't, there's a reason why Wayne County.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Republicans would not certify.
No, thank you very much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
And then they're trying to certify a whole state without Wayne County when Wayne County.
Next, I have Dr. Linda Lee Tarver, followed by Marilyn Fine, followed by Michael Haynes. Hi, Dr. Tarver.
Thank you,
Welcome to the
Senators.
committee.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Linda Lee Tarver. I'm a Michigan voter, former Michigan Civil Rights Commissioner, a retired state employee, and a Republican activist. I'm a public servant under 5 secretaries of state, including Richard Austin, Candace Miller, Terry Lynn Land, Ruth Johnson, and I was delighted to retire under the current Secretary of State.
Dude, how old are you?
I have been under 7 years under Secretary of State Ruth Johnson. In that role, I was the Community Affairs Director and Election Integrity Liaison. I assisted in preparing cases for referral to Attorney General Bill Schuette to prosecute for voter fraud. Ballot harvesting in Detroit, Flint, and Pontiac has been going on for decades. It's a misdemeanor to give your ballot to anyone not allowed by law to receive it, and it's a felony to take that ballot. People have been prosecuted in Michigan over the years as a result. Ballot stuffing, ballot curing, and complete fraud in the issuance, handling, and processing of ballots has not been addressed, and no election after 2020 should be considered fair unless we get this right this year.
Thank you.
The complete hate, disdain, and apathy for Republican poll challengers is but one way of how elections are stolen in Michigan. Before COVID-19, and I'm talking to the Democrat in the House, and in every election in the last 25 years, Republican poll challengers were removed by the police, especially in Pontiac. MCL 168.733 says, the election inspectors and other election officials on duty shall protect a challenger in the discharge of his or her duties. Shall protect is not an option. Shall protect. It is never done in the urban areas. Never, never, never in the urban areas. In the 34 years I've been working for the state of Michigan, and certainly not the 29 years I've been working at the Secretary of State. It also says in subsection 4, a person shall not threaten or intimidate a challenger while performing an activity allowed. You shall not threaten or intimidate. It is a misdemeanor for what they have done, these inspectors, to continue to intimidate and throw out Republican poll challengers. It has been going on too long. 71% of Detroit precincts, our largest city, cannot be recounted. As always expressed as minor clerical errors, these are not minor. There are touch points in the process for these ballots to be, and the accounting to be done, those ballots to be open. In order for this fraud to be corrected, we need a complete audit. You need to have optics on it. This has always been done in communities of color. It needs to stop. Enforce the laws and ensure, bring in independent inspectors. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Come on, give her a
Thank you, Dr. Tarver. Any members have a question?
Go on ahead.
Senator Tice?
Thank you, Dr. Tarver. I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate your testimony. Also very compelling. Do you have, when you speak about an audit and a complete audit, what would you see as the appropriate type of audit? Would it be a forensic audit? Would it be a hand recount of ballots? What would you like to see done?
71% of Detroit cannot be recounted, which means that the boxes that the ballots are in cannot be opened. 71% is egregious, and it happens in these communities of color. So if you cannot recount it because of a, quote, clerical error, according to Secretary Benson, these are not clerical errors. These ballots are hidden in. You can hide them in there until you're able to open them. There are processes that have been allowed so that when you cannot balance your precinct, you can go to a counting board or a board to evaluate them. At that time, those errors are supposed to be fixed, and they can open up the ballots. The only way to open up the ballots right now to get your...
What's going on? Go back to RSBN. They had bad speaker, that's why I left them.
Speak about an audit and a complete
get you 71% of the ticker tape that says these are the numbers, and there are bad ballots inside. You cannot recount it because of a, quote, clerical error, according to Secretary Ben. Clerical errors. These ballots are hidden in. You can hide them in there until you're able to open them. There are processes that have been allowed so that when you cannot balance your precinct, you can go to a counting board or a board to evaluate them. At that time, those errors are supposed to be fixed. And they can open up the ballots. The only way to open up the ballots right now to get your ideas on it is for you to do a complete forensic audit. That needs to look at the ballots if you do a recount. You need an audit in order to do a forensic audit to look at those ballots. Some absentee ballots that were coming in were not even folded. How do you have a pristine, flat ballot without being folded if it was an absentee ballot? And therein lies some of the problems. And once it goes into the machine multiple times, you cannot open up the case. If you put the wrong number on the seal, you can't open it up. If you put in, it doesn't balance, you can't open it up. And so there's problems with what's going on. We need to open up those ballots for the integrity, because we cannot move forward in any further election.
Can I ask a follow-up? So I am curious, because I understand that a lot of them didn't balance. What is the appropriate process once you get done with the election and you've done the ballot count and you realize that they're not balancing? What would the appropriate process be right then?
The precinct inspectors or the precinct captain who is supposed to be trained are supposed to contact the clerk's office if there's any problem with balancing. You're supposed to know and have your hand on how many provisional ballots, how many spoiled ballots, where are the missing ballots, what's going on. You're supposed to take care of it at the precinct level and then close your precinct. But if some reason you're not able to, there's a counting board where you take your ballots to turn them in to say, I testify that I did this and I've got my paperwork, I've got my poll books, I've got the notes written down in the poll books or in our electronic poll books. And that counting board is supposed to say, you're not in balance. Let us open up that container and make sure those poll books we can look at the ballots. We physically can look at them. But in these urban areas, they're lazy and they're not taking this, the civic right very seriously, or their duties very seriously. They take an oath when they do as a precinct inspector. They are not taking it seriously and have not for years. And the apathy toward the official duties here has become egregious, because once they decide not to balance that precinct, then it goes through and you have the hot mess that you had, where you have these canvassers, board of canvassers, 4 people that is supposed to amend that hot mess. Flint has never been able to balance. Never been able to balance, and there's touch points across where they have the ability to open that up, to do a quote honest open of the ballot itself, the container itself. If you're not able to open that container up, which after it leaves the counting board, you're not able to do it unless you get a court order or an audit. And no one has been brave enough to do it. 71% of Detroit cannot be recounted. We have nothing. And when we did a recount before, we saw some of the most egregious things when we looked through and did recounts before in Detroit. There's some things in there that should never have been in there. And that is what I'm telling you about when you're able to open up those ballot boxes. But it is not going to be at the Detroit canvasser level, and certainly not at the Michigan State Board of Canvasser level.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tice. Vice Chair Irwin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions for you
Sure.
that I'm going to ask you based on the fact that you've been around for a while. You've been an activist. You work for the Secretary of State's office, so that's why I'm going to ask you these things. I think my first question is, are you aware that there are audits done on past elections, and in any of your official or unofficial capacities, did you ever have the opportunity or cause to review those audits that looked into things like, dead voters and all that kind of stuff that we've done in the past?
Yes.
Okay, and did you find that the answers to those questions were that, in fact, these were clerical errors in previous audits that have been done by the Legislative Auditor General and before this committee in the recent years?
So I've worked with Chris Thomas for years, And I've submitted some illegal stuff that I felt was illegal to them to investigate, and they were investigated. How they remedied it was not according to what I felt was necessary. There have been clerical errors, if you call it clerical. The law concerning your ability to be a precinct inspector, a poll worker, is that you have to have a sufficient clerical acumen in order to perform the duties, which means you should be able to read and write and add and subtract. And you should be able to perform the duties without any inhibitions. We know that there are over 500 precincts in Detroit, and many of the people who will come and get trained, some of them will not show up. But the ones that do show up, they are not given sufficient training on how to legally perform the duties that they have. However, if they are told that the challenger is the enemy, this person standing behind you is the enemy, and they have not been told that the person behind you must be protected, you will not be able to address some of the oversight, laziness, ignorance of the law, ignorance of the process, and lack of training. And so one of the ways that ballots are the election fraud occurs is when you have workers who are not properly trained. And that's where we are finding is lack of training. They're in a hurry. They're not sure what to do. But those clerical errors are mixed with clerical errors, but a lot of them are considered fraud. I would have referred all of them to the Attorney General if it were me. But Chris Thomas and others decided not to. They tried to remedy those things as best they can, but unless you put the full faith into the law and start prosecuting people, we will continue to see what we've been seeing. 71% of Detroit cannot be recounted. And I would not want to run on a Detroit city nothing at all. I would not want to run in the city of Detroit knowing that there have been, quote, clerical errors, that some of them are illegal. There are ballot curing problems. We have seen people walk into the clerk's office in Detroit with a stack of 75 ballots. Janice Winfrey is standing next to me. And this guy is not related to all of these people. He's not a postal worker, nor does he work for the clerk's office. These are ballot harvesting has been going on. Inez Brown in Flint has been, the clerk of City of Flint has been complaining about it. These are not clerical errors. These are what's been allowed. And when you have drop boxes for all of these urban areas to make it convenient, you do not have the ability to check the drop box that I'm putting in 50 ballots. If you don't compare the signatures, you toss the signature out. You don't compare the signatures, you're supposed to. It's in the law. We are not following the law, and we're not following it in every election. And the larger the jurisdiction, which are people of color, people who look like me, the more fraud that can be inserted into stealing an election. And that is a problem, and we need to stop it.
Okay, I almost am afraid to ask another question.
Ask the second question.
You've read the audits, you've seen them. We both read the audits.
They know me, so
yeah, I know. We both read the audits. I just keep putting it out there that, in fact, it is part of Michigan election law that we have audits, and those audits have been done in recent elections, and they'll be done after this one as well. And I just want to put that out there. And then also, one of the things
you're talking about a
post-election. That's
yes,
right.
but
that's what the law says.
They're insufficient.
I appreciate your
they're insufficient for what the purpose is. I'm asking for a forensic audit of the election itself, looking for the fraud and illegal votes.
Yes, and I'm wondering why the Trump campaign didn't want to do a recount, which would have been the normal process.
Why would you recount 71% of the votes cannot be recounted?
You know what? That's a problem. I want to agree with you on that. I'm trying to build up to agreeing with you.
Why waste your money and time? It costs money to do a recount. Why waste your money when 71% of the votes that you need to look at physically cannot be even seen?
Okay, and that builds up to my next question.
I'm not paying $2 million or $4 million for 29% of the ballots that can be counted, because the rest of them cannot be counted.
That's one of the reasons why I voted against the changes to the recall law that made it so onerous and difficult for people who wanted to look into these issues.
Open up the ballots.
The issue that you mentioned, and I just want to highlight for the committee, because I really agree with you on this, is that when you have a situation where there's a discrepancy at that precinct, those precincts should be recountable. And we need to find a way to make that so. And I think that what you're going to find here in Lansing is that there are a whole lot of Democrats who are going to agree with that. We want these ballots to be looked at. We want elections to be run in a safe and secure manner. But the problem is that this legislature has been controlled by Republicans since the 80s. The state Senate has been controlled by the Republicans since the 80s. And so my question to you is, after the 2016 election, when we saw the problems that we saw that you just hinted at, when we had agreement apparently between a lot of folks about the fact that these precincts should be recountable, why did we see no changes in the law to address any of these issues while we had a Republican governor, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate?
So I'd be happy to answer that question. That's a very simple one. We have sufficient laws on the books. So my brothers and sisters in the Republican GOP has done their due diligence to pass laws, make laws. The enforceability of the laws, however, because in Grand Traverse County, we're not having this problem. In certain counties that Van Buren County, we're not having this hot mess problems that we have in Pontiac and in Flint and in Detroit. We don't have that. So if you want Republicans to pass more laws, why don't the Democrats in their cities enforce the doggone election laws so that we can have fair and just elections? Because I just gave you the law. It's a felony for me to give my friend, next door neighbor, my ballot. It's a misdemeanor for me to give it to them, and it's a felony for them to turn it in. A felony. It is not enforced. And we have situations in the inner cities and these Democrat-controlled areas, because that's what we're talking about. Democrat-controlled areas cannot seem to balance their elections. And because they have been habitual violators of the inability to balance their election because of either ignorance, apathy, lack of leadership, or lack of caring about their election integrity, because if you add more laws to the books, you still have people who will not follow the law. And if you don't enforce the law, if you don't bring in Republicans to say, I am going to be a poll worker, if you need 5 Republicans in the building, make sure 5 workers are. Contact the Michigan Republican Party. Ask them for 5 people or 25 people or 200 people to work.
I know, I saw that.
And then when the challenges come in, you protect them. You don't put them out. You don't call the police on them. You're supposed to protect them according to the law. If you follow the law in the urban Democratic controlled areas, then we would not be here today. I certainly wouldn't be here. But in 25 years that I've been monitoring elections, working with the Secretary of State, the last 8 doing election integrity, it's been a hot mess in the same Democrat-controlled areas. We don't need any more laws. We need to enforce the laws, and we need to open up the doggone.
But,
Oh my goodness.
but we are agreed that we need to change the laws on recounting precincts. We do agree that we need to change the law on recounting precincts, right?
Pardon me?
We should change the law on recounting precincts. That was
We're
my question.
not changing the laws for recounting.
You went on a nice political screed, but the question was about that specific law, allowing the recounting of imbalanced precincts.
No, we're not.
Let's change that law.
We're not trying to talk about recounting for imbalanced precinct. The balancing of the precinct can come at the counting board level. You think that the ballots come out and then all of a sudden it's given in and locked up in a box. It is not. Once it leaves the precinct, it goes to a counting board. They have the full authority to open up that ballot box because it's not balancing. If the seal is broken, if this is broken, they can reseal it at the counting board. There is a law with the counting board, and it's lazy in the inner cities of color, of people who look like me, are not doing their job. And it needs to be done so that we can count 100% of the precincts instead of 29%. That's what needs to be done, is to make sure people are doing their job. You won't get that in an audit. What you will get in the current fake audits that we've been having and these fluff audits that we've had right now, you will get, well, these can't be recounted, so okay, so we can't do that. Here's what we can. You'll get an audit of the 29% in Detroit that can be recounted. That's all you're going to get. Because we need to see the 71% of the fraud that has been locked up and will be destroyed after so many years. That's what we need to see.
Okay.
Thank you,
I'll take
Senator.
any other questions.
Thank you, Senator Irwin. Senator Lucido.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Tarver. I got to tell you, I can't agree with you more.
She's been sitting
My
behind
whole problem is sitting in this chair
and
today
it's got two 2020s
and
on
leaving
it.
the Senate
and
to go
she's been, like,
prosecute those
pressing them out
crimes.
even so that the whole
Why
time you see her
was it
legs
when the Secretary of
for the whole
State, which
day,
you were there how many years?
see her
I've been with the Secretary of State 29 years.
Almost 30 years. And we've been in this room here over 6.5 hours. And the irony is, it's about the same issue. If the people are doing their jobs and the integrity of the vote is being respected, we wouldn't be in here today.
That's right.
2 is 71% can't be counted because
Of fraud or apathy or incompetence or clerical error or all of the above.
So we did some testimony, and the chairman was gracious enough to bring in 3 separate identifiable clerks from 3 separate identifiable counties. We asked these questions. How many of the ballots weren't signed that you didn't count? How many didn't look like signatures? I mean, we went into the deep dive because there's so many people that are so disenchanted. I don't want them to give up on the vote. I want them to remember that people sacrificed their lives for these amendments.
People who look like me died to get the right to vote. And I'm telling you, it is sacred.
And this discriminatory practices with women not getting the same right that men years ago. If it's a felony, it's a felony. If it's got to be prosecuted, it should be. Otherwise, the whole fabric of this entire nation falls apart. Discrepancies in the precincts, I get it, to my colleague up here. If you're going to have discrepancies, it's if it's an easy fix. But I'm not hearing things from all over the state. I'm hearing them in segregated areas, and I think you are targeting these areas by saying people are either inept to do their job or they don't care about doing the job.
They have either been instructed not to care or have been allowed to, over the decades, not to be held accountable for the lack of accountability in the sacred vote. When you have gone so many years, people do not want to be called racist.
Right.
And if you are going into urban areas, in particular Detroit, you're hearing, why are you trying to disenfranchise the black vote?
Yeah.
You are racist, racist, racist.
I think this, and
But that has been the mantra to allow for the 71% of no accountability when we have safeguards in place to ensure the balancing of the precinct and the seal that is not broken.
Dr. Tarver, those ballots are not of color. They
I
are,
agree.
they are one color.
That's right.
And they go in and they have parties on them. And the disrespect that I've heard throughout the process in Wayne County, in Detroit, only leads me to believe that even an audit process, and I got to ask this question, if 71% can't be counted,
Cannot.
the audit process to spend the kind of millions of dollars that it would take, and I really don't even know what CPA firm or what firm would do an audit. Have you, in your almost 30 years with the Secretary of State, could you identify a firm that specializes in election audits?
We'd have to bring in the federal government. The forensic audit that is needed is not going to be what has been done in order to open up those ballot boxes, which we need to. That's where we need to open up the ballot boxes.
So if this has never been done,
Dear God.
if this has never been done in the history of this country,
Dear God. What is
I'm
happening?
asking this question. Does the legislature cumulatively or collaboratively work on a standard that would be the audit process? Because the next thing I see is that there's going to be debate over the audit process.
I don't see the legislative body, this body, passing any law to change anything, because must balance is not going to force Detroit to balance. Must balance is not going to force Inez Brown, the city clerk of Flint, to balance. Must balance. She has never been able to balance since she's been an election clerk there. So she's never balanced. Pontiac won't balance. There's a few other places, mostly urban areas, that will not balance. And they don't have to be as large as Detroit. They just won't balance. And if we don't have a mechanism in place, because once you pass a law that says we're going to do this, it is not going to be heeded, because then if you try to enforce it in the urban areas, you'll be considered a racist. You'll be considered disenfranchising the voters. You're just trying to check on us. Oh, black folks from Detroit need to have our whatever 71%. If you can't count it, you can't count it. And this Secretary of State will call it small clerical errors. And that is the mantra and talking points that should not be done. This is not a small clerical error. If there is fraud in those 71%, they need to be opened. Open the boxes. And that's going to be the new mantra, hashtag open the boxes.
Open the boxes.
Mr. Chair, I just have we're going to get down and drill down on this, but the reality is I don't think my colleagues on the opposite side of the aisle feel any differently. I think, to Senator Irwin's point, all of us want the integrity, respect, and trust. Otherwise, we sitting here as lawmakers make no sense if the vote doesn't count and it doesn't accurately reflect what's going on.
Open the boxes.
But
That was certainly the sentiment expressed at our joint committee's first meetings by all members.
And at the end of the day, though, if we don't have the capability of resurrecting this wrong to accurately reflect what the vote is, how did it get so disenfranchised that we all are sitting here today hearing ballots brought in at 4 in the morning? I must have heard it 20 times, maybe more. Ballots that were going through and counted 8 times. Ballots that weren't signed going through, or the signature appeared, or the date, 1900.
Oh, yeah. The constitutional issue, and the constitutional issue that the president is arguing, which is a valid one, is that the equal protection under the law, it's required under the Constitution. And this is the president's argument. Me in Lansing, Michigan, if I sent in my absentee ballot, I didn't sign it, or I voted straight Republican and straight Democrat, my partisan section should be spoiled because they should not be curing it. And that is being cured. If I did not do what I needed to do, my ballot won't count. But if the same ballot was sent in Detroit, it is cured, which is fake, trying to interpret the results, and it is accepted if I don't sign it in Detroit. And that's where in Lansing, my ballot won't count. In Detroit, it will, and I should be able to have equal protection under the law. That is the constitutional amendment. That's the constitutional argument that our president is making. That is what you should be looking at. Are we treated fairly, regardless of where we live in Michigan? Will my vote count? Regardless.
You use the word cure.
Cure.
In the law,
Yes.
if you look at the legal definition of cure, what do you mean by the definition of cure?
So the curing of the ballots is if you're not able to, you've got an absentee ballot and it is kicked out. Because if you're sitting there, your ballot is kicked out if there's an overvote or if there's an undervote. You can, if there's an overvote, let's say it says vote for not more than 2 and you vote for 3. It's an overvote. It'll kick it back out if you're at the precinct.
And you have a chance to cure
And you
the
have a
ballot.
chance to cure your own ballot.
To redress the wrong
Correct.
ballot.
But if it's an absentee ballot,
Yes,
it is not supposed to be cured.
it is not supposed
No.
to be. It's supposed
Your
to be.
partisan
It's a spoiled
section,
ballot.
It's no, that section is spoiled. It's not countable. But the nonpartisan section that you did correctly is supposed to be counted.
So let's go by example. I vote straight ticket, Democratic.
And Republican.
Or I vote straight ticket, but when I get to the judges, choose not but one, because they're nonpartisan,
Right.
that part.
Right.
I choose 2. what happens to the ballot?
So your ballot counts, but if it's an absentee, that particular judge is not, it's not counted.
Nobody gets a vote.
Correct.
Okay. At the end of the day, I sat here as a legislator for over 6 years now. I sit in this chair and I wonder why the Secretary of State, if you have to request a ballot in a primary for Democrat or Republican, why they just can't make 2 ballots, all Republican, all Democrat, and send them out so it can't get spoiled. You can't make a mistake. You can't go across the center line.
That is what occurs during the primary. So each group, Republicans and Democrats, decide who's going to be on their ballot.
But if you don't want the ballot to be spoiled and not counted, and you want your vote to count,
you can split your ticket in the general.
But I'm
Correct.
saying in the primary,
but
do you see why, if I'm asking for a Democratic or Republican?
No, I would agree with you.
Because now it's an impossibility to spoil that ballot.
That's only in the primary.
Primary, right. But that brings the next level of seekers to move to the general. And if the ballot was spoiled enough times, that seeker may not get the opportunity to serve.
I agree.
Okay, one more thing, and then I'm going to call it, because I know it's been... No, but you know what? I'm tired of sitting here and trying to defend...
I'm just giving you a hard time, Mr. Vice Chair.
Just go ahead. Give him all the time he wants to.
71% not being able to be counted, which means...
71% not being able to be recounted.
Which means, do we ever get the opportunity to find out what the hell happened?
You will never know what is actually in that box, in the ballot box. You're not able to determine if those who are... those ballots are even duplicated. If you see people sending in 3 or 4 times, you don't know.
So that statement of 71% has been stated out in the public. You are aware, being with the Secretary of State's office 29 years, that's a long time. At the end of the day, does this give rise for the Attorney General to make an investigation and inquiry why 71% of that vote went that way?
Yes, I would believe that, again, if there is impropriety, that is where the Attorney General can investigate. I've prepared referrals to Bill Schuette for election crimes. We've had people in Michigan prosecuted for voting in Michigan and at their summer home in Florida. We've had people who were not here legally, non-citizens, vote in Michigan. We've had tons of people who voted twice, voted in person and absentee, and they're doing it in large clusters in these urban areas. It is a problem in the Democrat-controlled areas. It's not the problem with the laws on the books. It's a problem in the Democrat-controlled areas, and the laws need to be enforced. And if they cannot be enforced, they need to at least bring in the federal government to do an oversight and administer elections in these urban areas, which have been routinely unable to be balancing at the end of the day. We have too many touch points where those things can be balanced. But we are not, we have an apathy or just a corrupt, either apathy or a corrupt system. And for some reason, we have no appetite with this governor, Secretary of State, or the Attorney General to do anything about it at this point. This is too egregious and too much fraud that it should have been already investigated.
Well, we have seen prosecutions in election fraud, such as Southfield. There is selective prosecution in certain areas. At the end of the day, why wouldn't this state want the ability to make the inquiry? Is it because the case isn't delivered perfectly? I mean, these are credible people that are testifying here, including yourself.
It is.
He's so angry.
COVID before COVID, and even with COVID, COVID does not change the law. The law was not changed to accommodate COVID. The people who are the challengers are required and need to be protected in order to see the process. They can challenge the voter, they can challenge the precinct inspector, and they can challenge the entire process. That's what the law says, 168.733. That's what the law says. But we also have laws on the books that allow for people, the public, to view. And we also have laws on the books, but if they're not going to be enforced because it's an urban area, we have laws that says that people who should need assistance should be able to have assistance in voting. And some of these precincts did not have handicap and disability procedures there. Voting by mail disenfranchises a lot of people who cannot read and write, who need assistance, who need some assistance in the voting process with the machines that will read the ballot to them. And so this is the problem where we're not allowing we've used as an excuse COVID, but we are not allowing what needs to be done. Just like the children who are not in school with disabilities are not getting the special care that they need, neither did the voters here in Michigan. They did not get the special assistance that is required by law. These special assistance, even those people who are blind, people who need Braille, people who need special audio equipment, we have those at every precinct, or it should be at every precinct, so that the people of Michigan will have everything they need to vote, and that is not being done in the urban areas. And people don't want to touch Detroit, but it is not a sacred cow anymore. It is looking more like a cow, but not a sacred cow anymore.
I want to say thank you to the chairman. I've gone way over my time.
So have I. I'm sorry.
And you know what, though? These questions need to be answered because all of us are here because of this.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the discussion.
Thank you.
I do want to say, I wish that we had the opportunity to bring you in on a time. I mean, the agenda today was really supposed to focus on TCF, but out of respect to you and your experience, have allowed us to go off. But we may need you to come back when we
Call me anytime.
get more into that specific subject matter. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job, Ed. Woo! What was her name?
Vice Chair Irwin?
Yeah, I'd just like to make.
Sorry, did I miss your?
No. I'd just like to make a request that before our next hearing, I would just like to make a request that before our next hearing.
Members, Vice Chair Irwin would like to speak to us.
I'd just like to make a request that before our next hearing, we get some basic information about the facts that we could get in front of all the committee members. Because I think it was at our first hearing, maybe our second hearing, where one of the good representatives also mentioned this figure that 72% of the precincts can't be recounted. And, I received communication from the Secretary of State saying that's not accurate, it's actually 28%. And that's a pretty huge discrepancy. I brought it up at the time, but we've heard this over and over and over again. I mean, we're hearing the same, quips, the greatest hits right here, but that one we keep hearing over and over again, and it's just not true. Right, and so I think that unbalanced precincts and making sure that they're recountable is an important thing, and I think that we should take a look at this. But I just want to point out that at least the information I've got, and maybe that's wrong, is that it's actually the opposite, and I want to make sure we're dealing in accurate information.
Mr. Vice Chair, thank you for bringing that up, and I pledge to you that by our next meeting, I'll have some answers or persons who can give us that answers for the meeting. So thank you for bringing that up.
Senator?
Yes.
It's
Senator Tice.
28% of the in-person were recountable, or were not recountable, and 71% of the absentee were not recountable, is my understanding.
I will strive to
and that distinction is super important, because when you say that 71 or 72% of them are not recountable, that obscures some key facts, and it also obscures the fact that there are fewer absentee count boards, a smaller denominator, which is affecting that percentage as well. But yeah, I just want the facts.
I will work to get us those facts for our next hearing. Thank you. We have a few cards left. We are nearing the end.
Pretty much.
Are you Ms. Fine?
I am Ms. Fine. And
Thank you.
I just want to clarify here when they're talking about it not being able to be, just pause it, because we can replay, and I pressed the button again. Wait, just go back, pause this, just pause it. We don't have to be exactly live. Make it smaller, fix my volume while I say this. When they're talking about why those boxes can't be opened, when there are errors, okay, they get put into sealed boxes that can't be opened, and that is what actually makes it worse. The boxes that here we go. The boxes that need to be recounted and readdressed should be the ones that shouldn't be sealed up. You know what I'm saying? Do I need to turn this off and back on again?
I guess so. Yeah, you turned it off.
Sorry. It has a touch screen, and usually it's not a problem because it's usually going flat like
Michelle's
this.
been touching a lot of stuff and messing things up
Oh,
lately, and
well,
I'm her sister, and I'm
you know
telling
what?
on her.
Oh my gosh. It's not my fault.
There, we're back.
Are we?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not hearing anything.
Well, now our computer's messed up.
I'm running late. Thank you. I have Ms. Fine, and then on deck, Mr. Haynes, followed by Patty Kamagata, and then
It
Eddie
usually means it's going low on
Kabasinski.
battery.
No, it's been plugged in the whole time.
If you're on deck, please
I
be
beat
ready.
it the other day.
Go ahead, Ms. Fine, you have 3 minutes.
Thanks. I'm from Ingham County.
still
I'm here
means
today
it's
not to
usually-
talk about Kobo, but I want to give you something that's along the lines of what Dr. Tarver talked about, and that's following the process.
Were you
See if that'll.
at Kobo?
I was not.
Can I ask?
Try one of the other streams.
Now we're going to be behind.
Leah, we can be a little behind. It's not a big
Buy them or print them.
See, that's a better volume.
It's bunk. And saw people's ballots. They said, can I put this in? I don't have the brown envelope.
We're not recountable.
5, and that has to do with the privacy envelopes. I spoke to Ingham County, Meridian Township, and Clerk Barb Bybram, and was told that we didn't need privacy envelopes. We were told by the Michigan Election Commission that we didn't need them because there were municipalities who didn't have the money to buy them or print them. It's bunk, folks. You need to look at every aspect of what isn't being enforced. I sat in Meridian Township and saw people's ballots. They said, can I put this in? I don't have the brown envelope. Oh yeah, we'll take that. Subsequent to my affidavit of facts, I also spoke with Lansing City Clerk Chris Swope. I saw him at a function. And he said, oh yeah, we accept those all the time. Okay. So I'm just asking that you look at that.
Thank you.
Check out the COVID, and I'll give you this, but thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
Perfect. Michael Haynes. I hope I'm reading your name correctly. I thought at one point it was Hayes, or...
No, it's not. I will stand corrected. My name is Michael Hayes, Hayes.
Okay, thank you.
If you're from the east side of the state, just like the street, right, Pete?
You got it. Hayes Road.
After Michael, it's Patty Kamagata, and then Eddie Kabasinski. You have 3 minutes, sir, please.
Okay. I don't know how much I could add that I haven't heard already that you guys have probably grown stale of, because I think you heard the same thing from a lot of people. I don't have much to offer, and the reason why I say that, I wasn't able to get into the ballot room for very long before I was actually forcibly removed. That's the only thing I have to just add to what's already been added at TCF on the morning of the 4th, okay? But I was there until 8:30, almost 9 o'clock p.m. on the 4th. But I will tell you a few things if you want to hear it and more as a judgment and add maybe to some of your thoughts, I will add. But as far as seeing fraud itself, I didn't see fraud. But I don't think they need any more examples that a dog wags its tail than what I witnessed in that day. A dog wags its tail. That means he's happy. Something happened there. You don't go into the amount of disclosure that what I witnessed in that whole day of my time, voluntarily, to know a dog wags its tail. So if that isn't a part of your discussion, that's fine. You have enough facts, there's been enough people. I was with the people in there. I seen the films that they recorded, 3:20 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, just like you have. So I won't bore you with those facts. But I'll tell you what, I'm a lifelong resident of Michigan. I got 50-some years of experience here. I was born and raised in the city of Detroit. I seen its day come and go. Right now, the pride level of the city of Detroit and Wayne County was at its highest that I've seen in a very long time. Some of you up there are old enough to know what I'm talking about. Some of them you're not. I guess I'll just have to ask you to take my word for it. Okay? I think we all heard the saying, taking one step forward and 2 steps back. That's almost acceptable. It is. But what I witnessed in the day of November 4th, 2020 in Wayne County, pretty much Detroit did not take 2 steps back. It took 17 steps back. It was disgusting, sickening, nauseating, what I witnessed. Outside factors who had come in, and these are people that didn't take any part in trying to bring the city back to where it was, the greatest city in the world at one time. Nothing. All they did is they came in and tried to diminish it again.
30 seconds, sir.
I will add, the leadership of this state did again, the only thing overwhelmingly discussing TCF was one comment, a divisional comment. It was racist. There was nothing racist there. There was only one race that I witnessed at TCF. That was a human race. That's all I need to add. I mean, I don't know if that is 1 minute or not.
Thank you.
So I don't know how much I can add to you. But guys, if you need more examples that a spade is a spade is a spade, I guess I might as well just start changing my zip code.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Any questions for Mr. Hayes? Thank you, sir. Thanks for your patience all day.
Thank you.
Wow.
Patty Kamagata? Yes. Oh, it says you weren't at TCF. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you, Patty. Eddie Kabasinski. After him, Gordon Pennington. And then Angelique Johnson.
You know you got city folk, right? Like, I love it.
Mr. Kabasinski?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good morning. Or afternoon. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. My name is Eddie Kabasinski. I am the only conservative on the Warren City Council. I represent District 5, which is the South Central Warren area. I worked as a poll challenger and was trained by Caitlin Vire and Macomb Trump Victory to work the primary and also on the day of the election. I worked at the Warren Schools Administration building, and I seen a lot of fraud, a lot of inconsistencies take place at that particular precinct. I was working at that precinct, which was sections 53 and 55, and I seen multiple inconsistencies. I reported these to the Macomb County Republican Party as well as Macomb Trump Victory. And, you know, I had had the lawyers contacted and nothing took place as far as remedying the situation. Then the very next day after we had gotten done with the reception party at Mr. B's in Macomb County that evening, Mark Fortin, our chairman of the Macomb County Republican Party, a little bit shortly after 1 a.m. in the morning on 4 November, read the results, and we were waiting for the results to come in on congressional candidate Charles Langworthy, and for it to go over 50%. Then Mark Fortin got the results, and every candidate in Macomb County, with the exception of Macomb County Commissioner seat number 3, which is Nicole Kleinfelter, nobody ran against her. The individual that was running against her dropped out because he didn't have any money. But every Republican won. And then shortly after 3 o'clock in the morning, all the votes changed. There was this ballot done.
1 minute left.
So after I had gotten contacted by the Macomb County Republican Party, a mass text message was sent out. I did go to the TCF Center at Cobo Hall in Detroit, as well as Rob Cordes with the Trump Unity Bridge was down there. And we were trying to get in. I went to go and get I had showed my poll challenger identification from the previous day. And I said I was already trained as a poll challenger. I was waiting for what the rest of the group to get in. They had these people with hoodies on that were there forcing out the 2 poll challengers that were left inside of TCF, physically pushed them out the doors, and then had Detroit police block the doors. and told us that we could no longer be there. This is at the time when we're knocking on the door and trying to get in. They put up the pizza boxes up on the windows, and we were not allowed in. Shortly after that, I got out of the TCF Center and seen Rob Cordes being arrested and the Trump Unity Bridge being impounded. I talked to one of the officers, the police officers who was there, and he said that the mayor Mayor Duggan basically had told them, not through James Craig, but to start arresting and detaining any Trump supporters that were down there in Detroit, that we were not allowed to be there.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Is there any backing up evidence that Mayor Duggan said or did such a thing?
Well, I'm going by my word. I am honorably discharged from the United States Army.
But somebody told you
yes,
that was what was said. So I'm just
yes, this is coming from a Detroit police officer that I had spoke to. I wanted to find out what was going on. Okay. I did identify to him that I was a councilman and retired military law enforcement. I would like to find out what was exactly going on, because I did not want to be involved in a situation that would get any members from Macomb Trump Victory or Macomb County Republican Party in any further trouble after we seen Mr. Cordes being arrested and the Trump Unity Bridge being impounded.
Okay.
So that was my concern, was for the safety and the security of all of us that would be down there from Macomb County.
Thank you. I just wanted to know what the source was.
It was a Detroit police officer, one of the Detroit police officers that wears the white traffic caps that is assigned specifically down to Detroit when you have events down there.
Okay. Thank you. I see no other questions. Thank you for taking the time and for waiting so long. I appreciate your patience.
Yes, sir.
Next, I have Gordon Pennington. After Mr. Pennington, I have Angelique Johnson. And then we have a few cards from folks who didn't come when I first called. Kurt Hausauer would be up then. Mr. Pennington.
Thank
welcome.
you, Mr. Chairman.
You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a long day, and I think more details may not be as important as some summary observations. I was at the TCF Cobo Hall Center on both Tuesday, November 3rd, for almost 14 hours, a little more than 14 hours, and again Wednesday, November 4th, for nearly 12 hours. During that time, I witnessed in summary many of the things that have been detailed by those who have given eyewitness testimony here today. That eyewitness testimony, I would submit to you, qualifies as evidence. That evidence has to be adjudicated and looked at in the overall scope of what it is that this committee will eventually do in determining how deeply you'll investigate or look at some of the evidence that's been presented here. What I saw in summary as a person from the business community, I've seen many systems at work, and I work on strategy, and I work in a number of areas where you look at the whole end-to-end picture of how systems work. I would submit to you that this system could be fixed, and it wouldn't take much, but it would take a very assiduous level of detailed observation. One, the very provenance of the ballots themselves. The ballots themselves, if you were to send something, if you were to send me a gift from Amazon, you would and I would both probably have, through the UPS, FedEx, or whatever delivery system, a greater level of confidence in sending me a piece of candy than you would the ballot, which has been described by many people here today as a sacred privilege, a sacred duty, a sacred responsibility. I think we'd all agree with that. But what I observed at Cobo Hall was essentially, on the surface, if you didn't look deeply, you could see teams that were working together. They were rallied together by the supervisors at various periods. And what I observed there was essentially an attempt to create some esprit de corps there. And I would submit to you further that many of the people working there just wanted to do their jobs. What I haven't heard brought up here today was how they were either incentivized or remunerated or both. I'm told, and I have not been able to verify this for the Detroit Department of Elections yet, that most of these people are typically paid $250 per shift. Maybe you can verify that. I was told, however, at this election cycle, they were paid $600 per shift. It's typically an 8 to 10 or 12-hour shift, day shift, and night shift, and that supervisors were paid $700. Why would Detroit be selected? And I'm told that one other Michigan city was selected for an enhancement of remuneration. That's interesting, to say the least. But I do believe that today, as we sit here, half the people in this constitutional republic, this great nation, feel disenfranchised and defrauded of this most sacred act of good faith in acting to sustain our democracy. Either way this goes, one half of the populace of this country is going to feel disenfranchised and defrauded. I think it's up to this body and other bodies like yours to have the will and determination to go deeper in at least looking at a standard, a modicum of best practices. And I think this could be easily done. I will submit my recommendations, which would include camera systems, which would be privately held. They would not disclose the nature of the vote. We all saw the ballots, but we're not disclosing which way people individually voted. That's a sacred trust. But secondly, I think you could also have a much better degree of sorting the provenance, just like I've said earlier. If you were to mail something to someone using one of the standard carriers today, you'd have more confidence in that than you would in your own ballot. That is an outrage, and that's something that is addressable.
Thank you. You have written down the suggestions?
I'm going to send you these suggestions, Senator McBroom, and I thank you for taking the time, but I challenge you to have the will, all of you, and I think this is a very, I think this is an equitable charge. I think across both parties, there's an equal interest in adjudicating this fairly.
I love you.
Nobody wants to see people feel that they've been disenfranchised and defrauded in this country today.
Me, I don't mind
And I believe we can do better. I believe we're not even close. If you were to bring a group of business people in, graduate students from a major university could hack this system easily. That was the thing that stood out to me most. This system is easily compromised, and it shouldn't be. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. After 7 hours of hearing testimony today, I think it was worth the hearing.
Well, thank you for your patience. Do any members have any questions before Mr. Pennington goes?
I just want to thank you for being patient, doing what you just did. There's not many that do this. Look at this today. But more importantly, those recommendations as through your eyes are different than from our eyes.
Yes, sir. Senator Lucido, I am like others have said this before. I've taken my liberty for granted. I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed. I've never fought in a foreign war. I'm not a veteran, but people have given everything for us to have this privilege. It is certainly, I know people have said these are fatiguing meetings, they're long days. No, they're not. This is worth it. Every minute of this is worth it. And I commit to you and to this committee to follow up and offer you suggestions that I think will be seen as equitable to either party. But this isn't over yet. I would submit to you and the American people that we have a constitutional process under law by which the media does not determine who our elected officials will be absent going through the process that is necessary. It's painful. It's gone on longer than it should. But we can do better, we must, and we must adjudicate this in a way that satisfies the demand of the American people that they trust, but we must verify.
I agree
Thank you
with
for your
everything
inspiration.
he's
Thank
saying. We've been here all day, man.
Is Angelique Johnson here? Welcome, Ms. Johnson. Is it Angelique or Angelique? Okay. I've only ever seen it spelled with a Q before,
I
so
know.
forgive me.
Just like in the Bible.
After Ms. Johnson, I have Kurt Hauschauer and Linda Brandis.
So it's Angelic.
Please, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. My name is Angelique Johnson. I'm a registered poll challenger and voter in Michigan. I was at the TCF Hall on November the 4th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I was called down to come and help out. I was told there wasn't enough representation for our side down there. And so I got up and went on down. I was credentialed and got in. And when I was in, the first thing that I saw after I was told what to do and what to look for, I worked at a table, the very first table. I saw a discrepancy. And at that time, I didn't have no one near me to talk to about it. I was supposed to go to the challenger at the table or the person that was leading the table, but I was still asking questions, and because that person wasn't near me, because we didn't have enough representation, I had 4 tables to observe, you know. I observed the young lady take the ballot out, pass it to the next lady. She scanned it in as I was supposed to stand by the machine, the video monitor to watch that process. And when she scanned it in, it wouldn't go. So then she tried again, or something happened, and she got her supervisor next to her, and the lady got up and went to another table and got one of the people in the shirts that was the supervisor. And she came back and told the young lady something, and the lady looked down in her book, and as I tried to walk over there to see, they told me to go back because I wasn't allowed to come that close to them, but to stand on the end where the monitor was. I would see everything there. And I could see her look in the book for the name that was on the screen. And I noticed that she found the name, and she said, oh, or something like that. It was a discrepancy with this one, and they should have put that one out, and it's here too, so it seemed like it was 2. I don't know, because I wasn't as close, so I'm just telling you what I heard. And the young lady said, well, send it through anyway. That's what she was told to do. So I didn't know if that's something I should have challenged, and I should have, but I didn't because I was still learning the process. And when I went to find my supervisor, he said it was too late to challenge it then. So that was one of the things that I did witness. I witnessed as I stayed there for a while and left out to go to lunch because our room was upstairs, and came back. It was a crowd of people there by that time. And when a crowd of people was there at that time, they wouldn't let them in. But I got in because I was already credentialed, so I just kind of slid around to the side and went back in. And then I noticed a guy said, everybody get out. So everybody had to leave. They put things, cardboard over the windows, and a couple of cops were there. So I noticed that. And I also saw a lawyer also being put out. I looked up and noticed people were cheering, and a lawyer was being put out, and they turned around and asked him, what are you leaving for? And he said, because I asked him what's the count in here because we had got information where they couldn't let anyone else in. That was on our side to help. And I'm thinking, well, I want to leave, so, you know, what if I leave, can they, like, switch us out? And they's like, if you leave, you can't come back, and if you leave, they're not switching people out. So, you know, I left by 6 o'clock, and that's the things that I saw. All I could do is testify to what I saw and what I witnessed that day.
That was good.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. Any questions from members? Yeah, Senator Tice, go ahead. You don't have to apologize.
When they said everybody leave, they didn't mean everybody. They meant some people, right? There were still people who were left in there. They weren't clearing the room.
When they said everybody leave, those were the people who had come to help relieve the workers who had been there the night before and into the next day. Those were the people who went upstairs where I were to get their credentials and everything, because you go upstairs, get trained, get your credentials, come downstairs and sign in the book. So it was a lot of them at the door. I got pictures. And those are the ones they wouldn't let in. They had some words. I came in and there was confusion going on right then and there. And all the TV cameras were taking videos of everything that was going on, because they really were yelling at each other. And they was like, we got the right to be in here. And the guy said, no, everybody leave. And that's all of the people who were at the front, who tried to get in to relieve the workers who were already there. Because I was told it was only 50 of us there. And I counted over 100 tables. And if it's supposed to be one Republican, one Democrat at each table to poll challenge, then that's why I had 4 tables to watch, you know.
So you were there at a pretty regular time, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on November 4th, and you said you were told there were only 50 Republicans there at the time.
Yeah, I didn't count, but that's what I was told when I got the phone call to come in.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you all, and may God bless you guys and bless this process.
The only cards I have remaining are people who were already called, and so they may or may not be here. Is Kurt Hausauer here? Is Linda Brandis here? Austin Kreutz. And Joe Farkas. And Maria Menzel-Brown. Sergeants, are there anybody coming? All right. Members, I really appreciate your attentiveness to everyone today, to the members of the public who wanted to testify. I'm very proud of our work that we've got all the way through all of the cards, which I was not sure we would do. I would like to,
Especially when Linda Lee came in.
I believe I'd like to have this committee, if you feel it's all right, I'll send a formal letter from us to Mr. Harkins and ask him to come in. I think he could give us some of the answers that we discussed earlier. Anybody have anything to say about that, feelings on that?
We'll do a little follow-up.
I think that's a good idea.
Did I say the right name? Thomas, I'm sorry, Chris Thomas.
I think all of the information that was put together is imperative that we share that information with the people that are doing their jobs. I think our colleagues, both sides of the aisles, would agree that the information is necessary for improving the process, if not perfecting what we've learned we can do as far as legislators.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lucido. All right, seeing no further business before the committee, Vice Chair Lucido moves to adjourn. Hearing no objection.
Okay, all right, here's the deal. Let's get this show on the road here. Leah, you're making me go dark. What's going on? Oh, I know what I need to do. I had changed the screen thing. Here. Let me see. Input here. Not input.
So if you guys just joined us, we took some notes, and because the other summations went so long, we haven't been able to give you a lot of our notes. Michelle, you started taking notes before I even got here. What was the beginning when you had the everything's connected to the internet? What was
so? There were several people that came in strictly to testify to the fact that all of these machines were connected to commercial routers that then were connected to the internet. Remember, keep in mind, these machines are not supposed to be hooked up to the internet. They're supposed to be transported with those memory cards from each machine. AV, they were using that a lot for the absentee vote sections. So when people would say the AV, that's what they were referring to.
network anomalies? This poll's being hacked.
Oh yeah, that was a really big, and they didn't expand on that, but somebody had said that they had seen errors on a computer screen that would pop up, and they would say network anomalies, this poll is being hacked, and then they would just continue to use it.
Wow. We had to sign off on it?
Yeah. The key under the mat thing, that was really key in the beginning. Patrick Colbeck, he was at yesterday's hearing and testified via Zoom. And he said that there was this key under the mat type section where they go in and they tell you exactly how to get in, right? And then these admin login credentials, including passwords, were found on the dark web.
Wow.
So anybody could have hacked this system easily. Let's see, the write-in votes, there were a bunch, but they never saw one Trump vote on the write-in votes. Somebody had said that it was an attempted coup, and I loved that. Now, there were several testifiers to the military ballots coming in. There were none for Trump. Or very few for Trump.
That was something
they were
that
copying multiples of them.
Several people said with the military ballots, they come in,
right,
and they would put in a birthday,
right.
Like these weren't military ballots; they were. They had to have been supposedly the military ballots, and in my opinion, that would mean the military ballots got switched out,
right.
And so military people need to, check and see if their vote was even counted.
Now, one guy came in, and it was really, so there were a lot of star witnesses today.
So many.
We're just remembering Linda Lee. She's unforgettable.
No, here's the thing. It was bombshell after bombshell.
Do you remember the guy that came in and he was talking about the actual work that he had done, and he had numbers out of 30,000. They were doing the research, absentee votes that weren't correct. There was 229 that were dead, 266 that were from vacant lots or burnt down lots. Then they had another 1,300 that were dead, 15,000 were it was 8.9% that were unqualified votes out of 30,000, and that was just the 30,000 that they were able to go over.
Right.
So I think that's it for my notes, really.
Yeah, Monica Palmer, she came in, she was one of the chairman of the board of canvassers. She who said we can't balance these books. A very distinction there. The Democrat was like, it's not 71%. That's a huge number. I heard it was 25% of the precincts that can't be 28% that can't be balanced. No, and what it is that 71% of the absentee ballot precincts could not be balanced, and 28%, because that's where he's like, but it's less than it was before. That's because the people who were voting were going in to vote, and they were voting legally.
No,
in
it's
person.
less. It's less. Exactly. It's less because there were less people in person voting.
Right.
That's why the in-person voting number would
And
be
there
less.
was a black woman who was a Democrat there. She probably couldn't stand being there, being in the power of God and all this testimony. She probably just had to go. I don't know what was her excuse was, but she was just
a senator on the
senator. But she told everybody, "Hey guys, I don't know what your problem is, because there was and here's the difference. There are poll challengers, and then there are poll workers. And here's what we figured out through this testimony, which was fantastic, was that a month ahead of time, a lot of Republicans applied to be poll workers, meaning you're supposed to have a Democrat and a Republican sitting there, and they're not the poll watchers. They, especially when it comes to adjudicating and fixing the ballots, you're supposed to be able to look at them, or an independent, if they're on the ballot, and you're supposed to be able to look at them and open them, and you're supposed to have two people at each table, so that, because the absentee ballot thing is not widespread. It's not supposed to be widespread. You're not supposed to have millions of absentee ballots.
Right.
It's usually small. You can have it in just a handful of people. It's not hard to go through, and they usually don't even change the vote or the vote totals, and a lot of them are thrown out because the signatures are messed up. So we learned that Republicans, there were two.
The quota was
Republican
already filled, or it was too late. Okay, but you can't have a filled quota of putting all Democrats in. Like, the Democrats got to it first, so we can't have any more poll workers. So when Joe Biden
says we have the
widest spread voter fraud organization.
So one woman said she saw ballots put through a couple times. January
several times, batches.
1st, 1900 on the military
Okay,
ballots.
I wrote that down. I don't know how many times I wrote that down, with people saying that the dates that they had were they were entering in. That must have been 20 people that said
there were
that.
no Republican adjudicators, which are people who would fix the ballots, or copy ballots, or what.
Let me get to this question real quick from Britt before it goes away. Michelle, does Trump need a court order to null and void the election? He can't do that. If so, then by having these hearings will cause any court action to be unenforceable because the evidence is now in the public domain. No. None of this evidence in the public domain matters as far as the issues that are being presented in these court cases. Trump cannot unilaterally give a court order to null and void the election, there's no court order that even could do that per se. We would have to go to the Supreme Court, at which case they would then decide that these individual states, and that's probably what's going to happen, are too much of a wash, and probably will then instruct the legislatures to give their electors one elector per state, in which case Trump would still win. That's in my opinion the most plausible outcome for this election.
So there was an Indian lady. She said somebody came up to her and was talking about the Republican poll challengers, and they said, let's get these MFs, these mother blankety blanks, out of here. And then she looked at her card and saw that she was a Republican. She said, oh, you're on the wrong side. They were trying to get all the white males out. And if they were not in the ballot, this is the Indian lady said, if they were not in the ballot book, they were just fed through. And she said that they would have the same sequential number. These are supposed to be random ballots. She wasn't talking about military ballots. It's literally statistically impossible to have two of the same sequential numbered ballots line up next to each other, because if they're mailed out, then they come back in. It's impossible. It's not even like hitting the lottery.
Right.
Let's see, ballots with bashes run through. The one woman who was hired as an IT woman, she was probably one of the star witness, little beehive lady with blonde hair and glasses. She was hired as a little extra IT woman for Dominion, and her
she
testimony.
had such an attitude.
Oh.
Like every time they would ask her a question, she was like incredulous. Like, that's what I said. It was
She
really
said
hilarious.
at the adjudication tables, the Democrats were sitting there judging the ballots together. Daniel Baxter was he is the villain of this whole story. He is the guy who at the night shift, and this is where it really went down. So they were pushing through little ones, but then when Trump was winning by such a high number, they had to bring in the big ballots. And that was when the ballots came through the back door, about 50,000 of them, and he puts over the loud screen. What did he say? This is how democracy.
Yeah, this is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
So
how many times have we heard them
Daniel
chant
Baxter
that?
is a Black Lives Matter agitator, and what they did was they put in Black Lives. This should be disconcerting to everybody because this is racketeering. These people are willing to put their lives on the line. And even go to jail because they're willing to. These are the people in the streets, in your face, calling for the defunding of their police, even though they tell you to call the police on the Republicans. So the biggest hypocrites. This is a criminal action. What happened in Detroit? I told you fireworks would go off. It was absolutely mayhem. They had a big data loss.
Several times the power would go. Not the power, but the computers would go down. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We actually heard that same thing happened in Arizona. What's the deal with that going on?
So, the owner of Dominion, Nick at TCF, second bad guy. Okay, we've got a couple bad guys. One of the big head guys, Nick at TCF. He's probably hooked up with Eric Coomer, who is Antifa, who's writing the software. So why is the co-owner of Dominion working the floor of Detroit? And the only IT that they hired for help was a chick and a 90-year-old guy who didn't know
have
anything
any
about
IT
IT.
backgrounds.
So it would kind of look like they were doing something. There was another Dominion employee there. There's a video out that Code Monkey put out on Twitter last night where one Dominion person, I'm not exactly sure where, is putting in USBs, palming them secretly and walking away with them. Where is the DOJ? I told Michelle, Bill Barr has said there's no fraud in this election. If you guys were wondering, what about Durham? What about the Hunter Biden laptop? Okay. Bill Barr worked under George Bush. Okay. You want to believe because of the way he comes across that he's a straight shooter. But he's not. And where do we go from here? And, Michelle got this really great word. I have a couple more things to go over here, but Michelle got a really great word that God is going to have to bring justice on these people, and they're choosing.
The word was, I'm separating the wheat from the chaff, and he's allowing people, there's a line drawn in the sand, and he's giving each person an opportunity to establish before our eyes which side they are on.
Exactly.
And then God's going to deal with them. But that's why these things are allowed. God's allowing them to happen.
She asked one of the Dominion guys, where did he go? An assistant for Dominion, and he said we went to the Chicago warehouse. We call it the Chicago warehouse, even though it's in Detroit. This woman has to be interviewed. This is real criminal stuff going on here. Owner of Dominion, and then the van comes in at 4:30 full of ballots when they were all supposed to be in at 8 o'clock.
Right.
Many people said ballots were backdated from the 4th to the 2nd. I have 17,000 dead people voting. And then the poll workers were told, contrary to what our famous, wonderful Linda said, to challenge and to be hostile to anyone looking over their shoulder, any poll watchers, and to just call the cops on them.
That the poll challengers didn't have any rights, that they were the enemy, that they would, the whole point was to block their view, the whole 9 yards.
Another man, Dr. Somebody, I don't have it written down right. He was saying, they had people wearing Black Lives Matter masks, Black Lives Matter t-shirts, and people didn't see there was a problem with that. It's not the problem with that. It's that these people are Black Lives Matter. And do you really want trained Marxists to be your poll workers, your poll watchers, and your poll supervisors? Because Marxists don't care about elections.
But there is a problem with it just on the basis because the woman that was not allowed with the shirt on that said Jesus saves.
Right, exactly. This witness said he challenged.
Why can't Democrats be Jesus people?
Challenge a duplicate ballot. Well, communism, blank ballots, and the supervisor said, "Don't worry, we're just going to run those through the tabulator, and the tabulator will."
We
just
heard
kick
a lot
those
of
out.
times when these poll watchers, poll challenger is interchangeable here. They would be told, "We're not doing that."
So what was stashed under?
We're not doing that
under the bins.
Oh, there was one lady that testified to these ballots. These are probably two separate things. And when it was like a Trump vote, and she saw that it was a Trump vote, she'd put it back in the envelope and stash it under the bin.
Wow, what did they look like? Did they ask her anything about that, or was that just one of those go through?
No, they didn't. The 50,000 to 150,000 is what I wrote down when there was a young, a Hispanic guy that got up and spoke, I think, and he was the one that was really elaborated on the 3:30 and 4 a.m. dump, and he was talking about how much, and one of the things that he did say was it was unlike any other of the drops that had happened. We had a 50,000 drop and then a 50,000 drop, but when that 3 a.m. 50,000 drop came, it was not at all the same.
So there was a reboot of the system at 2 a.m.?
Yes.
And then what about the nursing home?
Oh my gosh. So one lady testified. Now, this was a hearsay, and you weren't supposed to testify hearsay. Okay. But she said that her neighbor, she ran into her neighbor, and her neighbor said that at a nursing home, I don't remember if it was if she worked there or whatever, but that they did a fake election, a mock election with real ballots, and that those ballots were...
Wow.
And she gave the name of the nursing home, and I guess she had contacted the people at the nursing home, and they said that she says that they said, and it's all hearsay, that they don't want to come forward for fear of losing their job.
And then what about this? Bob Cushman, Challenger, all.
Oh yeah, so all these
no
61 boxes that had come in, that's really huge. And he said that none of these names matched in the poll books.
That's right. Okay, so I heard that too. So what he was saying was that the ones that came in at night, this is new information to all of us, they didn't match the regular poll books. They were in the supplemental poll book that would have been people who had signed up within the past 2 days.
Yeah.
And so he's like, you mean
it was like 100 and some odd thousand. I don't remember how much it was. I guess I didn't write it
60
down.
bucks. It was about 60 bucks. Is about a let's just lowball it at 50,000. Okay. Let's say it's like 50,000 people is what I think he was saying.
I'm overquoting that now that I think about it.
But not only is that crazy to have 50,000 people sign up within the past 2 days, but they all voted absentee really quick, and they all happened to have their vote go to wherever this van.
Because a lot of times,
but why would they go to where this van is at?
Because a lot of times with the the last minute voting, that usually is for people that voted in person.
Yeah, but these are people who registered
you know,
to vote. Yeah, and then would vote in person rather than get
Right.
know. Why would you vote? Why would you register to vote, and then vote absentee?
Right.
How do you get your ballot? How do you get a ballot in the mail if it's within the past couple days?
That's a good question.
That would have to be people who were, you know what I mean? The supplemental book was for like people who registered within the past couple days and then voted in person. So, and then Linda Lee, she, just go watch her. She was just amazing. She was talking about, there was not equal protection. They cured the ballots, meaning, they made sure if you were voting for Biden, if you're voting for a Democrat, they fixed your ballot for you and it went through no matter what.
Right.
Okay.
But
And
when
they
she
made
said
a lot of ballots.
She's like in Lancaster, was that the right word?
In Lansing.
Lansing. They were, so that's not equal protection.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that those in Lansing should, now we're turning all dark again, should have their ballots cured. It means that the law says that your ballot does not get cured.
So just a couple updates here before we sign off. I don't know, we weren't watching this, but whistleblower Jesse Morgan says he drove a trailer with 100,000 to 288,000 ballots to the United States Postal Service from New York to Pennsylvania. He says his trailer was diverted to a new delivery location by a supervisor and disappeared from the United States Postal Service depot in Lancaster after he parked it.
Wow.
In total, I saw 24 Gaylords, or large cardboard
I feel like we should do a separate show for
of
this.
ballots
I know.
loaded into my trailer. These Gaylords contain plastic trays. I call them totes, but trays will work, of ballots.
Is this a
of
white
each
man? I don't know.
All
In
the
our
envelopes
picture, he
were
looks
the
like a black
same
man. I just want
size.
y'all to know. I
could
think
see
he's
the envelopes
white.
had handwritten.
Not that it matters, I just
addresses,
want to be
return
clear here.
addresses, and I could even tell that one was marked registered mail. That one was off to the side. All right. They were complete ballots. I didn't think much of it at the time. At Bethpage, I was first loaded with 2 tall Gaylords. So picture that thing there, or this little representation here, but this tall, all right? So I was loaded with 2 tall Gaylords, okay? And that were, where was I at? That had mixed mail pieces bound for Lancaster. These Gaylords were loaded first because they would be the last off my trailer. The remainder of the truck was loaded with complete ballots bounded for Harrisburg. I then drove to Harrisburg with the ballots. Usually I offload in one of the 7 docks every day, but not on October 21st. I wasn't allowed to offload. That's different. Whenever I pull into Harrisburg, I go around and I get my dock and I get unloaded and then I roll out. Not that day, all right? Not that day. Instead, I was made to wait for roughly 6 hours in the yard, from 9:15 a.m. to 3 p.m. This really ticked me off, all right? Because my brother was in town. He just moved back up. And I wanted to spend some time with him. I tried to get the attention of postal workers, but no one would tell me what's going on. All of this was weird. I arrived at about the same time every day. The expediter scans all my seals and barcodes, and they unload me. But for the first time, but from the time I first arrived in Harrisburg from Bethpage, everything got weird. None of that happened. After waiting 6 hours, I went inside to figure out what's going on. I was told to wait for the transportation supervisor. This was also weird. 16 months I've been doing this. I haven't ever talked to the transportation supervisor for the United States Postal Service. I talk to an expediter. I come in, I see an expediter, that's who I deal with. If I have an issue, it's the expediter. I don't deal with anyone else but the expediter. I never talk to the United States Postal Service's transportation supervisor. Let's make that clear. I have my own transportation supervisor for the company that I work for. He's the one that gives me the details. He's the one that I listen to. I don't listen to this guy. He's the guy that would contact my boss if he needed something ran different. I've never spoken with this transportation supervisor from the United States Postal Service. They don't speak to people like me. He's a top guy. He's the kind of guy that would speak to my boss, not a trucker like me. The supervisor told me to drive to Lancaster without being unloaded in Harrisburg. This made no sense to me. I knew the ballots were loaded for Harrisburg, and that if I was to go to Lancaster, they would have to off-unload my ballot or those pallets in Lancaster to take off Lancaster stuff, to put the ballots back on the trailer, to send it back to Harrisburg. Doesn't make no sense. This was a real screw up in my thinking. I wanted my ticket. So whenever I go to a place, when I go there and whenever I'll leave, I'll get a ticket. I'll get a ticket, a slip, whatever you want to call it. It's the date, time that I'm supposed to be there. It'll have my trailer number on it. It'll have how much I'm loaded. It'll have the seal number. It has my name. It'll have who was the expediter. So I wanted my ticket, my slip. I call them tickets. Some people call them slips, okay? And then because I was there for 6 hours, I wanted my late slip too, because I wanted to be paid for sitting in that yard for 6 hours. So I wanted the ticket and the late slip for stopping in Harrisburg. Also, I wanted it because if they tell me to take this load to Lancaster, I don't want to pull up the Lancaster of Harrisburg crap and be like, yeah, they just told me to come here and not have no ticket, because then it'll look like I just came straight here, you know? Just to prove that I was there. And so others would know I wasn't the person that screwed this up. A ticket is always provided to a driver when they arrive at a United States Postal Service facility. It proves you were there. The transportation supervisor refused to give me a ticket and told me to leave. I then demanded he give me a late slip, since I wanted to get paid for the time I was sitting there. And waiting for them to offload me. He refused to give me that too. He was kind of rude and wouldn't explain anything to me. He just told me to go to Lancaster. I then drove to Lancaster, unhooked my trailer in its normal place, and then drove my truck to where I always park it, in a nearby lot, and then I went home. The next day, it just got weirder. As I arrived at Lancaster's United States Postal Service facility with my tractor, I went to hook up to my trailer, and my trailer was gone. Not there no more. 10R 1440. Since I started driving that Bethpage route, I've always had trailer 10R 1440. I like that trailer. It was a nice trailer. I know you guys probably don't really know nothing about truck driving or trailers or anything, but the rear tandems had if you're driving light, the rear tandems the front axle will actually go up. Nice air ride. The doors on it worked great.
He sounds like he's making up his story.
You could honestly put it on the back of a carrier and drop it off in the middle of the ocean and no one would worry about it. So that trailer I really liked, okay?
I like this guy.
What happened on October 21st was a series of unusual events that cannot be a coincidence. I know I saw ballots with return addresses filled out. Thousands of them. Thousands. Loaded onto my trailer in New York and headed for Pennsylvania. At first, I didn't think it was a big deal. In fact, I thought it was really awesome. I really did. I was like, sweet, I'm doing something for the presidential race, you know, this is cool. But as things became weirder, I got to thinking and wondered why I was driving complete ballots from New York to Pennsylvania. I didn't know why, so I decided to speak up. And that's what I'm doing today.
I'm a hero, Mr. Truck Driver. Okay, are you gonna play the other one? We've been streaming for like ever, man.
That's
Like we
it.
could do a whole
That's
nother
it.
show. You said there was
That's
two
it.
of them.
Well, that was just, I think I
I'm
have
exhausted.
the guy who's putting it together. The Amistad Project is putting that together. Jeff Kosovic was in Amistad. Multiple election whistleblowers are coming forward on record, including a USPS subcontractor, truck drivers. I'm going to see if Jack has anything new on this. There's a lot going on in Wisconsin. Let's see.
So our friend Serge sent us State of Oklahoma Executive Department. I think it's from the governor. Put out this proclamation. I'm gonna make sure no phone numbers are visible on my cell phone before I show it to you guys. We learned that lesson the hard way. Whereas Oklahomians have always turned to prayer to guide us through trials and seasons of uncertainty, and whereas I ask Oklahomians of all faiths and religious backgrounds to join together with me in prayer and fasting to continue to ask God to heal those who are sick, comfort those who are hurting, and provide renewed strength and wisdom to all who are managing the effects of COVID-19. And whereas churches and faith communities have an incredible opportunity during this season to provide hope to Oklahomians who are struggling as we close a year that has been mentally, emotionally, and physically draining, it is important we continue to find safe ways to gather as we all do our part to protect our families, neighbors, and communities from the virus. And whereas when we unite in prayer, we are reminded that there is no burden too heavy for God to lift or for this state to bear with his help. 2 Chronicles 7:14 proclaims that if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their lands. Therefore, I, Governor J. Kevin Stitt, do hereby proclaim December 3rd, 2020 as Oklahoma Day of Prayer and Fasting in the state of Oklahoma.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I think he knows something's up. And then more on the USPS. So several whistleblowers on Tuesday cast new uncertainty on the 2020 election, claiming up to 288,000 ballots disappeared. Another 100,000 were improperly backdated. That was more to that testimony that we are going to look it up and watch it and bring you some highlights later.
When?
And
when are we going to do that? Because tomorrow's going to be another long day with Rudy.
I don't know. Another 100,000 were improperly backdated, and mail promoting President Trump was junked while mail from Joe Biden was delivered. And then we saw the testimony that he drove these ballots. Another claimed the ballots were backdated by postal workers in Traverse City, Michigan. Trump campaign mail was put in bins labeled undeliverable bulk business mail. Joe Biden's was delivered. A third raised new issues about the integrity of Dominion voting machines. The claims were unveiled by the Amistad Project of the Thomas More Society. So there's that. And that project has uncovered potential flaws in fraud in ballots and voter registration of several states and that have certified elections. Let's see. The whistleblower accounts released today to detail the failure of election officials in blue jurisdictions to maintain ballot chain of custody, allowing for potential infusion of fraudulent ballots. These accounts include photographs of individuals improperly accessing voting machines and a detailed eyewitness account of the breaking of the sealed ballots of the ballot jump boxes of the ballot jump drives and commingling of those jump drives with other jump drives. It added, the accounts also revealed multi-state illegal efforts by the USPS workers to influence the election in at least 3 of the 6 swing states. That was Jesse Morgan moved the ballots. Nathan Pease is told by 2 separate postal workers on 2 separate occasions that the USPS in Wisconsin was gathering over 100,000 ballots on the morning of November 4th to backdate the ballots so that the ballots would be counted even if they arrived after the statutory deadline.
Wow.
That was part of the testimony. I thought I tweeted it out. He said that he was just a contractor to go pick up ballots, and he was told that they were missing 100,000 ballots, and they had to find these 100,000 ballots, and when they were found, they would be backdated. Computer expert Gregory Stenstrom of Pennsylvania witnessed a vendor of Dominion voting machines and local election officials download and update county machines in violation of election system protocol and the commingling of machine jump drives in violation of election protocols. Postal workers in Traverse City, Michigan Cornopolis, Pennsylvania, Erie, Pennsylvania, and Elkins Park, Pennsylvania indicate widespread malfeasance in the Postal Service, including backdating ballots, ordering that Trump mail be interdicted to be placed in the undeliverable bulk mail bin, and emphasizing that Biden mail will be delivered on time.
Here is the deal with these certain things that we're hearing. So many people on the left, they'll hear one point and they'll say, but that kind of thing happens every election and it's not enough to overturn the election. But when you have thousands of those incidences, it's a big deal. We have never, do you understand? Everybody keeps saying, no, this kind of stuff just happens every year, every year, every year. If a quarter, if an eighth of what we are discovering this time had been discoverable when Hillary Clinton ran against President Trump, do you not think they held on to a dossier that talked about peeing on sheets, man?
Absolutely.
Okay? They would have, if they had
Absolutely.
this, if they had this, and
I
I'll
know.
tell you why
I
they
know.
actually did. They had this. They used it last time,
Yeah.
which is why they couldn't bring it out.
Right.
There was no fraud on the Republican side last time.
Right.
And so it's new in that it's bigger.
Yeah.
But it did happen last time, and the left didn't bring it up because why would you reveal your secrets if you're planning on re-upping it for 4 more years? 4 years
Scott
later.
Adams says the organized bullying of election witnesses, if proven to be organized, and we know it is sufficient reason by itself to toss out the entire city's votes.
Yeah.
That behavior demands the harshest penalty available, even if it puts the entire country into a spin. Do it anyway. So what we were hearing from Linda was that it is actually a misdemeanor to harass or
Right.
bully. You shall let them see the ballot
and protect
it's a
them.
and you shall protect them.
It's like
it's a misdemeanor. So every person in that room who did that needs, it's
Here's
like
the deal.
You need to have is that the person who bullied you, and they need to go to
The
trial.
poll challengers were actually supposed to be the sacred cow of the room, not the poll workers.
Exactly. All right, guys. So, Bill Barr's not in. Bill Barr is on the other team.
He's picked his side. That's fine. It's at least helpful to know. And I think that's why I'm glad that he's come out and said that, because we're kind of wondering, maybe Bill Barr is holding something back, waiting for later. No, they got to him.
No, if he was on our
Forget
team,
Bill Barr.
The investigation into the investigators would have been released before the
election. And I want to tell you
election.
something. I know a lot of you guys have, Trump 4D, and then how you feel about Trump. Trump turned his backs on us, and you know what? I'm sorry. Trump is not God. And I don't want to get angry saying this, because I don't let me only receive this if you have said stuff like this in our chat, okay? Trump doesn't know everything.
I know.
And I'm guaranteeing you that when Trump put Bill Barr in that position, he trusted that he was a man of integrity and he was going to do the right thing. And the left tried to eat Bill Barr alive. Okay? We all thought that Bill Barr was our guy. And Trump did too. I listened to Donald Trump call into Rush Limbaugh's show the day that Bill Barr was supposed to be doing some big Hunter Biden thing. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was a really big deal. And when Rush said he's not doing it, and I heard Donald Trump live on that show in shock. He's like, I don't believe that for a second. He's like, if that's true, and he was like taken aback. Okay?
So there's this clip
Trump doesn't know it all. He can make, these people that he appoints aren't, they're people.
There's a clip that I watched.
It's not infallible.
And I have to go. You can finish it up if you want to keep
No,
talking.
I've been ready to go for an hour.
Okay. There's a clip that I watched with Donald Trump from the late 80s, early 90s, and he said, sometimes I wish I could lose it all so I would find out who my real friends are. And he said, I did actually go through a time when I found out. And he goes, you'd be surprised. The people who I thought would be loyal weren't loyal. And the people who I thought were just kind of on the fence were incredibly loyal.
Wow.
And Donald Trump has seen that the loyal people are these average Joes on the street.
Yeah.
And I have goosebumps again. That the loyal people aren't going to be in the Beltway. And that the loyal people, very few of them have been in Washington very long. The loyal people are people who haven't been in Washington, because when you go there, you get my precious. You get the ring. And as Thomas Massey said, they have a little pin that you wear
When you're a congressman.
When you're a congressperson, he said, I take it off because what happens is like people know that that's you're a congressperson. You feel the power, and it destroys you. He calls it my precious, and he goes, I felt the power. I felt it tug me. And so you've seen it with Ilhan Omar and AOC. They get these power trips. So you're just a nobody. You're a nobody. And then now you're a congressperson. And that's the same thing we need to feel about like a lot of these people. They're nobodies, even though they might have been in Washington for years and years and years. They're nobodies. The people, the Dr. Shivas of this world, yesterday, Arizona, those people at those hearings, they chose, I don't know how they count, they got colonels, MIT grads, these are mathematicians, statisticians, so many like legit business people who like love their country. And I've been saying this, and I'm going to say it again. It is the people with Donald Trump. I just keep seeing the chessboard. We have a king. We don't have a queen on our, the queen on our team is the church. Okay. But it's not in government. If you're looking for government, but I will tell you this. When it comes to elections, particularly presidential elections, the state legislators hold all the cards. Mm-hmm. They hold all the cards. They decide elections. And before, your 2 senators actually used to be chosen by your state electors. That's the kind of power that our founding fathers wanted to give to the states. So what do we pray for? Where do we go from here? We'll just pray. God, I just thank you so much for this day. I thank you. I knew it would be a bombshell after bombshell, but I thank you that they did do the 3-minute thing and that they got all the witnesses through. Amen. Because what it did was what Juliana should have done, but it all works out. It's just to back things up. And I just pray, Father God, that what's ever happening, we know now that these Dominion people are totally in on it, whether the software has, why they has the fractions and things like that. Father, we ask that you continue to bring these things to light. But Father God, at this point, I feel that now is the time to pray that action is taken. Amen. So now that this stuff has been pushed to the forefront and this is where you have led us. So now I ask, Father God, that cases start to drop. Yes. That legal ramifications start to happen and people start to be rounded up and prosecuted. I don't know, Father, who is going to round these people up and prosecute them, because it seems like everybody's in on it, but not everybody can be in on it, Father God. There are 10 righteous men. There's got to be in the FBI, in the DOJ, and there are judges out there who are righteous. And so, Father God, I just pray that you steer these situations right to the right person who was put there at that right time by you, because you do have people in place. Because this is your country and you are King of Kings and you are Lord of Lords, and our country is not too big, it's not too vast for God to control. You control everything. You control the rise and fall of nations, Father God. And we know that our nation will continue to go on the rise with people who love you. And what we saw again today was people calling on you, asking for you to make this right, where people said, I pray that God sees this and God makes this right. God bless you. God bless America. And so, Father God, I pray for those legislators that you give them a backbone of American-made stainless steel. I pray, not that China stuff that breaks and rusts. I pray, Father God, that you give the Supreme Court justices who are on the side of righteousness backbones like stainless steel. I pray that people like Amy Coney Barrett will have a backbone of stainless steel, righteously held up by the Constitution of this United States, and everybody will be righteously held up. And Father God, I know that you are separating the wheat from the chaff. Bill Barr was the last one to go. And now we can begin to see the vengeance of our God and how you bring justice. Father God, Rudy Giuliani, he's doing his best, but he can't pull this out. Donald Trump is doing his best, but he can't on his own pull this out. The American people, Father God, they're doing their best. They're doing their testimonies. They can't pull this out. The legislators, they're hopefully going to do their best. But they're going to get there, but they can't pull this out. So we pray for wisdom at the highest levels down to the lowest levels, that you give Donald Trump wisdom, the lawyers wisdom, judges wisdom, witnesses extraordinary courage. We pray, Father God, for good law enforcement, because there are good people who care about this country. And we just plead the blood of Jesus over America, and we put America into your hands, and we say, angels, go forth, do what it is that God has called you to do. There are things we don't even know that need to be done. Father God, please do those things. Open up those locked boxes. open them up. Let's see the ballots. Let's see
Open
the
the boxes.
signatures. Let's see the things that we need to see. Father God, the only thing that brings disinfectant is the light. And so we ask that you bring the light of the gospel of Jesus Christ. We see the ballots, we see the signatures, the lawmakers see them, and action is made to make this election as fair as it possibly can. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Barry, you had said, are we going to do a mail call?
I have to go.
We have to go. We got dogs that were supposed to be home an hour ago. And so we have to go. Catch me next time, and and we'll do it. I promise. As long as Rudy doesn't go for 8 hours tomorrow. But
Well, I think they're going to limit it.
I hope that they do, honestly. But here, speaking to that, and I'll end with this. I don't know if you guys have been with me all day long. Bless you.
Bless you.
The start of the day, these senators were hostile to the witnesses.
Very.
Even the Republicans.
Yes.
Kind of sitting there like, well, what do you expect me to do about it? Whatever you have to give me is not a big deal. And by the end of the day, we saw fire coming from, and not even by the end of the day, it was like halfway through, these people were getting angry. I cannot believe that I am hearing this witness testimony, and I'm disappointed in these senators. I have to be honest, because I'm well aware of these testimonies. I'm well aware of what happened because I've been doing the research. And what are they doing for their job if they don't know what happened in Michigan of all places, right? But they did get fired up at the end. So listen here. What needs to happen is going to require the, for those of you that are overseas and maybe some of you in the United States that don't know how our system operates, to take back this power, we need the Senate and the House of a specific state. If the House is willing to listen to Rudy, the House is going to be sympathetic already to start with. And now we have these fired up senators that are going to go back. And what they were telling us is they were already having bipartisan meetings because for the past 4 years, the left has been arguing about election security because Michigan went for Trump. So they can't walk back all that stuff on the state level. They have to put up or shut up because they've been talking about it and ragging on. It's actually been a lefty kind of ideal for the past 4 years in the Michigan House, State Senate. So that's really encouraging. The USPS whistleblowers coming out, massively encouraging. We have so much to be excited about. This was a huge win, a huge day. It was another historic day. I want to cry. Yesterday was huge. Today is huge. I'm probably just. Leah just said you don't see people make that change without the Holy Spirit. We saw a turnaround. We saw people get up and talk about God. We saw Linda Lee come in. What, Leah? It's called a testimony for a reason. When you're a Christian, if you're not a Christian, you don't know. I've been saved by the blood of Jesus Christ, and how he saved me is my testimony. These people gave a testimony. That is their story of what happened to them. And many of them were asking God to speak through them. And that's really huge. We cannot lose this one, guys. It's impossible. And I'm so moved because I'm surrounded by Christians on all sides, my brothers and sisters in Christ. All of them. What? David's? Little David's, all of them. And then if you guys don't follow baseball and you never played softball or baseball growing up, but I did, we were big softball players. And Leah and I were always really proud of the years that we played when we got to be cleanup hitter. Linda Lee was our cleanup hitter. That means you put on your four best hitters. You got number 1, number 2, number 3, and they're supposed to all get on base. And then Linda comes, and we saw these hitters get on base. We had multiple bases, not just 4. And God put her there, and she sat there the whole day. You could see her lap, and you could see her scarf, and she kept adjusting them so that everybody could see her little 2020s at the end. You didn't know who was sitting there. I know I took note of her. I saw, she's got nice hands. There's a black woman with pretty nails, and she keeps pressing out her scarf so everybody can see her red 2020 scarf. I said, that's a Republican black woman there. I did not know that she was going to be an angel sent from God at the end. She cleaned up, and what she did This is why being a cleanup hitter is so important. It's fine to get on base. Everybody that spoke there today got on base. Okay, maybe a couple of them had some foul balls. Every single one of those people got on base, and it would not have mattered until Linda came and cleaned it up and brought them all home. She brought it all around. God organized it. She was our Joseph in this moment because she's been in government for 29 years. If you guys missed today, you missed an epic show. For those of you that have been with me, God bless you. I love you. I count you as family. You've been in the studio here with me. Leah is so cute yelling off screen, says Apple Mark. She can't leave. So I'm going to sign off. I have no idea what time the Rudy thing is tomorrow. I'm hoping it's not early in the morning. But if it is, that's all right. We will make it. We'll make it work. I love you guys. God loves you. Please like this video, comment on this video. I'm sorry we cut out in the middle, but maybe it was God that we ended up with 2 parts. Anyway, I might, if tomorrow's looking like it's going to be a big day, I may cut the video in half at one of those if they do a break for lunch or something like that, so that we can have it in 2 parts. It's easier for Patriot Gallery. I can't even speak, for my mama to post it in 2 parts. So, all right, you guys, be blessed for the rest of the night. Go off cheering and praising God. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. All right, you guys, we love you. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory if it's actually the truth. And thank you, Darren, for this new microphone. I think it's fantastic. God bless, guys.
I was called